Welcome, Sugar Ones. This is going to be season 32 tier list. We didn't do one for last season, but I'll just run through the tier list with everyone. First, you're going to be having Antiquarian and Friends, which is just basically meta characters. Niche means that it can use in almost any situation. Solo ranker simply means that there is not really that much support capability on this survivor for you to be able to aim for more. The next one is tie guarantee, which basically means regardless of how bad you play, you should still be able to get a tie. Team code dependent simply just means that either you need to be able to contain for really long, or your teammates has to contain for really long just for you to be able to harass for them. And then you're going to be having the unreliable tier. Unreliable tier was changed from play for fun. I decided to change to unreliable simply because of the fact that some people didn't really understand too well what play for fun means. So we're just going to switch it up a bit. Yes, it doesn't sound too good, but it is kind of true as well. And then let's move on towards the tier list, shall we? You're first going to be having Lucky Guy, in which we will put him on the unreliable tier. Please make sure that this is also a ranked tier list. I'll probably just mention that in the video at the start as well. But Lucky Guy is a little bit considered unreliable simply because of the amount of counter a Lucky Guy has as well. For Lucky Guy, yes, you have a mini lucky box, you have a mini parcel on yourself early game, but that doesn't mean that there's still not a chance for you to actually fail to get the item you want. For example, if you wanted a rugby ball, you sometimes might get a needle or a book or a flashlight, in which case, in these case scenarios, it's kind of really of a risky situation too. For Lucky Guy as well, you only have one item early in the game. You need to spend a lot of time looking for items, which is another part of the issue as well. So not only are you giving away your decoding time, you're also needing to spend more time looking for boxes. You need to spend time searching into boxes and then run back to your cipher machine. You could possibly say, yes, Lucky Guy can get a doll. Lucky Guy can get 50% of that 100% doll and decode another cipher machine while he is looking for, you know, another chest. But even in that case scenario, you have one less item to be utilizing, to be using for containment, which is honestly not the best case scenario. It's also with the fact that era selection mode has been available now ever since Griffin and above, which means that depending on where you spawn, it's almost always guaranteed that you want to spawn near a heavily chested area where there's a lot of chests for you to get items. For example, Red Church near the graveyard, and another example would be in a hospital, potentially speaking runes. So then, like, for characters that counter Lucky Guy, like even simply a geisha or a woo-woo with fast movement speed, that simply means that you cannot spend your luxurious time looking for items in a chest. Even slow moving hunters too, they can catch up to you relatively fast with basically with warp or with just teleport alongside with conjuring effect, trying to find you first. So like for Lucky Guy, he is still considered pretty unreliable. Yes, he has been using tourneys, but you do need to understand that we are day-to-day based players. We aren't, like, realistically speaking, it's only the top 1% of like CN and Japan players or even Southeast Asia players that is going to be able to play Lucky Guy in a tourney setting. But aside from that, not really. So Lucky Guy will be a part of the unreliable tier. Next, we're going to be having Doctor. Doctor is somewhat of an unreliable tier 2 as well. Or you could possibly say Doctor can go into team comp dependence. But like Doctor kind of shifts in between these two, simply because of the fact that, you know, okay, yes, Doctor has gotten a buff. Yes, Doctor can now heal. Yes, Doctor, even if she gets chipped, her heal doesn't get interrupted. She can still heal from where she left off. But like, in this case scenario, right, if you're thinking about Doctor trying to body block for a survivor that is basically maybe dead on chair, the only issue with Doctor here is, yes, Doctor can body block, but then right after you body block, you need to go heal immediately afterwards. You kind of do need to harass her later as well, because like once as Hunter hits you, you want to run into a safe area yourself to, you know, heal and then go back into body blocking. But all this time running to a safer area, healing, and then running back to survivor in which you want to body block is still pretty hard, especially with the fact that if the survivor you're trying to protect doesn't really have any items to contain against, you know, a max presence Hunter, just because you're giving the Hunter presence as well. Yes, Doctor's survivability is good only under the condition that if she is the rescuer, or if the Hunter decides to not change target for her immediately. Because like there's so many things to take into consideration. You're gonna have a Doctor body blocking for you, and then the Hunter immediately change targets to Doctor and then immediately teleport back towards the survivor in which she was chasing. And then like in this case scenario, you're kind of slowing down your decoding time, and then you didn't really buy that much time for your survivors too on the run. So like it really depends on scenario to scenario situations. Yes, if there's only one cipher machine remaining and there's already someone on that cipher machine, you can body block for as much as you want. But like under the condition if your survivor downs really fast, under the condition if you're if you want to body block for a rebound kite to try to let your survivor to rebound kite, that's still a very low possibility for the survivor to be able to do so as well. So like for Doctor, yes, she has received buff, yes, she has received multiple buffs, yes, we have seen her as well in tourneys against Ivies, but aside from that, it's really not so much. It really isn't just so much. So for Doctor, she'll be a part of a team component here. Next, we're going to be having Lawyer. Lawyer is still more or less a part of the niche tier list. He has received his nerfs. He has reduced his decoding speed from 20% to 15%. He also has reduced his movement speed boost from 5% to 3.5%. But overall, he is still considered well, I would say he is most likely the best the best character out there currently when it comes to decoder. Not only can he contain, he can also decode pretty fast as well. But like overall for Lawyer, just because of his item as well, you have that map, you're able to see the Wood Hunters at all times. If you just spawn Lawyer in any, you know, two-story area, strong containment areas, being able to look through walls, being able to, you know, just do so much things in general. For Lawyer, his survivability is brilliant. He can contain hunters for a relatively long time. Like for a Lawyer main, usually you would finish up using your map before you go down. That's what usually would happen, right? And then like you probably can use your map for around 40 seconds without getting hit anyways, just because you keep putting distance, you're not afraid of terror shock, and even if you do get hit, you get a veteran speed boost along with a normal attack hit speed boost. So like with so much boost here in mind, for Lawyer, being able to pull distance, being able to decode, yes, he cannot support, but at least like the containability and the decodability, Lawyer is most likely the second or third fastest decoder right now if we take into consideration of Faro Lady and who again, and Mind's Eye. But like overall, he just has an overall very niche kit. He could go on Antiquarian on Friends, but I guess because of the introduction of Ivy, the introduction of, you know, Opera Singer, he will be lowered a little bit. Next, we will have Thief. Thief will be a part of the solo ranking tier. He wouldn't really be in team count dependent. He wouldn't really be in tie guarantee, because usually if you're playing a Thief, you kind of are going to be able to pull distance away from the Hunter to flash the flashlight towards the Hunter's back or face, nullify their effects, and then get a stun at least. For Thief as well, he has one flashlight and he has 3 mini flashlights in which he can deploy on the ground. And what does this mini flashlights mean, you may ask? These mini flashlights in a nutshell kind of does help you out quite a bit, especially with the fact that, you know, in between windows, in between single pallets, and or even just, you know, chair rescues overall when you try to, you know, double stack the flashlight effect to either nullify the Hunter's abilities or just to, you know, stun them. But overall for Thief, he's a part of solo ranking simply because of the fact that he does a little bit of assist, but his solo containment is pretty good as well. Even if he can't really solo contain, right after you get the rescue, he can still kind of rebound kite. right? If Blink was forced out, yes, once you get the rescue on towards Thief, Thief can flashlight towards the Hunter and then nullify their skill abilities immediately. So then in this case scenario, the Hunter either needs to move back or needs to move away from the lawyer in order from the Thief in order to be able to catch up to him, for example Geisha or Wu. But even so, aside from that, usually what Thief mains bring is Flywheel. And what is good about Flywheel is the fact that you have Weber's Law. What does Weber's Law means? It means that you gain movement speed boost when the Hunter is near you initially, right? You gain 15% movement speed boost for 3 seconds. This is especially good against hunters that can catch up towards you immediately, for example Geisha, for example Wu, for example Nayid. Being able to get that 15% movement speed boost simply means that you can pull more distance between yourself and the Hunter, so you can shine that flashlight easier. But it's only once, so then if you get chased first, you know yourself, okay, I have Weber's Law, I have 15% movement speed boost, they're gonna catch up to me, I'm gonna shine my light, I know I have movement speed boost, I know they can't really catch up to me that easily, so I'm gonna nullify their skill effect and the running open area, so then like, I'm going to force them to not be able to stand behind anything to counter my flashlight abilities, for them to use their abilities, right? So like overall for Thief, he isn't used as much, but he is still good, especially with, Rebound Kite Containment. For other characters on chair as well, you may say, okay, even though you're able to nullify the effect, you still need 2 survivors to come into rescue. At least you need 1 survivor to give the Titan and another and Thief nearby, just to cancel the skill effect as much as possible for your survivor to contain. Now this will be reduced quite a bit because of the introduction of warp, but we won't be moving into that until the Hunter tier list. But overall for now, Thief is a part of solo ranking. Then we have Gardener. Gardener will be part of team comp dependent too, but better than Doctor. Overall for Gardener, yes, she does work in tourneys. Yes, we have seen her first pick, second pick in tourneys because of her bubble, but aside from that, there's not really so much. We don't see Gardener often, dismantling chairs. We also don't see Gardener often trying to body block for characters. Gardener is more of a solo containment type of character, but of course she does work well against Cowboy, she does work well against with Wildling, she does work well with survivors that bring max struggle, but aside from that, really not so much. Gardener has an initial 50-second bubble early game, and then right after that there's a 20-second cooldown per each bubble. A Gardener can save up to 1.7 seconds of bubble charge up, just so the next time the way you save up is you stand still and let the Hunter hit you. When the Hunter has interrupted your bubble time, it will be saved for the next one. So for example, you stood for 1.2 seconds and then the Hunter hits you. The next time you only need to stand for 0.8 seconds and the bubble will be up immediately. This is particularly good, especially with the fact that most of the times Hunter attack animation is around 0.7 to 1.2 seconds. Like the 0.7 seconds is just really fast pick type of characters like like Opera, like Nayid, but even for them I feel like they're 0.84 seconds for their attack animation. So like for Gardener, what does this mean? This means that if you're about to go down and you can't contain anymore, all you need to do is just stand still and let the Hunter hit you. So then during Rebound Kite Containment, if you feel like you're gonna get hit, you can activate that bubble immediately and then still have a pretty successful Rebound Kite Containment. But overall, aside from that, you could possibly say she has team comp play as well with the chair dismantling if survivor goes towards a corner. But with the recent and updated meta, especially with warp's introduction as well, she does get pretty heavily countered. If she tries to dismantle chair, she'll get hit. If she tries it again, all what it takes is a Hunter to use warp again from the other side to teleport towards Gardener when she's dismantling the chair, and then it will still end up as a double down situation. So for Gardener right now, we don't really see her dismantling chairs that much, but it is still viable to a certain extent. And then we will have Magician. Magician will be a part of solo ranking too, but I'll put Magician below Thief. Magician has 3 wands. Magician, yes, he is a brilliant container, but he only fights for himself. Right, so with Magician with 3 wands, usually a lot of pro players, survivors run Flywheel with Magician, just in case, if you use your wand and then the Hunter is able to catch up towards you immediately, at least you can Flywheel and then use your wand again to gain your movement speed boost. When a Magician uses his wand, I'm quite sure he gains a 50% movement speed boost for 1 second. And if the hunter hits his illusion, the hunter will be highlighted to all survivors. You will be highlighted in white, by the way. But aside from that, Magician also has another thing in which when he gets rescued from chair, he stays invisible for a few seconds until invisibility has ended, then the hunter can see him. Now, the only issue with this is it gets countered by Nostalgic now, in which it highlights the survivor that has been rescued from chair if there are still 4 survivors left on the field. So like for Magician, his trait doesn't really work that well against hunters just because of that now. But you know, even aside from that, he is overall still a pretty good solo container. He isn't bad, but like he is able to contain, yes. If he uses all 3 of his items, he should be able to contain for like 70, 80, 90 seconds. And then like the hunter will probably blink you down. But you know, overall in these case scenarios here with Magician having 9 seconds or 10 seconds on wand cooldown, let's just say you use 1 wand every 10 seconds, and then you're probably going to be able to contain for at least, you know, 30-40 seconds for free. Get a hit and then get blinked down. That's around 70 seconds in that sense. But overall for Magician, I don't really think he has any decoding debuff. So like with a strong container and a good enough body block potential, it's just like he doesn't give hunters attack recovery animation, which kind of makes him a little bit worse compared to Perfumer in my opinion. But overall, it's still a very good container. Next, you'll be able to see Explorer. Explorer is probably a part of solo ranker here as well. We have seen Explorer in tourneys, we have seen Explorer in ranks as well. Overall for Explorer, just because of the fact that he can hide early game, kind of makes it really annoying for hunters to be actually able to find him. Even with area selection mode, right, you can just spawn you can kind of gamble it off and spawn Explorer in the worst possible area, and then usually hunters wouldn't chase after him anyways. But then like even if you do spawn Explorer in the worst possible area, just because of the fact that Explorer is able to hide and be able to hide in between, you know, items, in between chests, in between grasses, it's still like, it will still take hunters 30-40 seconds before he's going to be able to land the first hit on the Explorer. And the Explorer just does his basic containment, it's going to be a blink down anyways. For Explorer overall, not a lot of hunters are willing to actually go find you simply because of the fact that it is too risky. Right? There's not much that a hunter can do if you're hiding, aside from the fact that they can use their hunter's instincts to try to find out where you are. But like the moment the hunter was nearby and then the hunter leaves an Explorer, you as an Explorer main definitely would try to change locations towards somewhere else where the hunter was already looking at, so you can kind of make sure, okay, the hunter won't come back here anymore. It's also with the fact that as an Explorer too, when you are, you know, in mini form, or even when you are not in miniature form, the good thing about it is that your trails disappear 1 second faster. If you bring the persona points, if you bring Feather, if I'm not wrong, your trails disappear another 1.5 seconds faster, which means 2.5 seconds trail disappearance. That's pretty fast, honestly. So like the moment the hunter loses you and you move in towards mini form, they may not be able to find you as well. But aside from all the early game, Explorer also has mid to late game. Usually for Explorer mains, sometimes they will like to look for their treasure first, sometimes they would like to decode first. Usually what I see in tourneys is that if the Explorer isn't first chase, they will decode first, and then they will go get their treasure. Why? It's because they will look at where the page is and be like, okay, I know the page is there, I know a cipher machine is near that area, I can tell my survivors that I am going to decode that cipher machine after I finish mine, which means that, you know, it wouldn't take that long for me to actually finish 2 cipher machines. Explorer's first initial cipher machine will probably take 80 seconds, but then the second cipher machine will most likely only take 40 seconds, right? Just because finding a page takes, you know, 27 seconds, and then decoding another 50% of a cipher machine probably around 30 seconds too. So like with that in mind, being able to do that as well and having accelerated decoding soon too. And it's also with the fact that after he decoded his second cipher machine, you can go look for the first page again and then decode the last cipher machine on Primate. Realistically speaking, a lot of Explorer mains in ranked tourneys only use 2 pages from what I've seen in CN server, and it works pretty well. Even if your survivor dies really fast, all you need for an Explorer to do is to decode the cipher machine initially, and then have a rescuer go in to give tinnitus. Once the survivor is after a half, or when the explorer finishes his first cipher machine, explorer just needs to go into miniature mode for as long as possible, get his 2 pages, and then decode. Because like during a stealth situation, you will be able to at least have 2.5 cipher machine done, and then if the hunter needs to look for another target, most likely Mercy is going to be able to finish his cipher machine. Most likely for you, an explorer, you're going to be able to have 100% treasure anyways. So like for explorer, he's more than a guarantee type, but he also is a little bit better as well when it comes to his survivability and containability, but it's mainly just because of the fact that he can hide. Next, you're going to be able to see Mercenary. Mercenary is still a part of Antiquarian and Friends. Mercenary will always be a part of Antiquarian and Friends. Having 20% decoding debuff, yes, it definitely sucks, but he also gains 20% chair time, which means he can sit in chair for 20% longer compared to normal survivors. For Mercenary, he is one of the only survivors that can actually tank a terror shock. He is also one of the only survivors that can pull distance immediately towards the chair. For example, his elbow pads allow him to immediately elbow pad him from one area to the chair immediately without, you know, getting stopped by the hunter. If you compare it to forward, yes, forward can do it too, but forward does have a little bit of an exhaust time as well, in which he needs to recover after pulling his ball. But overall for Mercenary, having 8-second tightener per each hit kind of does help as well with containment, just in case he downs too fast. But usually when a Mercenary is first kite, he wouldn't, even if he uses his elbow pads very fast, one elbow pad equals to a hunter taking 5 extra seconds to basically try and catch up towards him. And usually when Mercenary elbow pads, they will be able to find the next kiting area immediately as well, so they can still utilize some pallets and windows to contain for a tiny bit longer. But like aside from that, Mercenary can at least still guarantee you the tie. Mercenary can still at least, you know, contain 60 seconds and force to blink out. But like overall, what I would say is because of the fact that he's a very good rescuer, he can basically no damage rescue if you really want to. So if the hunter's out of position, no damage rescue hurts a lot. He can rescue twice. Even if he has a half health, he can also rescue. But I think one of the main factors is he can tank a terror shock, which really works well. He can contain for long, which really works well. It's only his decoding which is a bit meh. Next, we're going to be able to see Priestess. Priestess is also still a part of Priestess and Friends. Overall, she's pretty good, right? I don't think we need to say much about Priestess. Priestess only has a vaulting debuff in which she vaults 10% slower, but of course that can be recovered by utilizing a knee-jerk reflex, the muscle memory persona trait. But overall, I would say for Antiquarian, I was reading the tier list. But overall for Priestess, what I would say is, having long portals helps out a lot. Having portals also helps your survivors to be able to transition from one containment area to another really fast too. Especially with the fact that after a hunter uses the portal, they also get stunned. We also have seen multiple cases of Priestess using trap portals as well, in which these trap portals forces the hunter to take the second portal right after taking the first one, to allow your survivors to rotate an even further area, in which it will take the hunter more time to actually catch up towards you. Another possibility is that sometimes Priestess mains will like to save their long portal for mid to late game. When a survivor gets down on chair, you can have a rescuer go in for the rescue, and then the survivor who was on chair will just run towards the long portal immediately, and then go towards Priestess and gets healed by Priestess. This is particularly good as well, simply because of the fact that Priestess has a 10% healing buff as well to all survivors on the field, so all survivors only take 10% less time to get fully healed. Usually what Priestess persona points will bring is Priestess will bring a healing persona, in which she will be able to heal survivors fast too. So even if you are a fast chase hunter, the survivor on the ground will still be able to heal up immediately too. Right, so like that's kind of where we are at now currently for Priestess. Very strong support ability, very strong healing ability. It's also with the fact that she does have containability herself as well if she was first chased. Long portal allows her to go towards a survivor and heal them. If you want the rescuer to rescue again, put a long portal towards the rescuer and then go immediately heal them, or even just the fact that you can create a long portal between the last 2 cipher machines, and if you're the last 2 survivors, or if there's only 3 survivors remaining, there's you and maybe the first officer. You long portal towards first officer cipher machine first, you finish your own cipher machine, and then you take the long portal to decode first officer cipher machine, which means that you take even less time to run from one cipher machine to another, which also, you know, assists in cipher rush. Right? So like that is pretty much a really decent kit that Priestess has. Yes, Priestess only has portals, but these portals are pretty strong as well if you use them correctly. But for some odd reason, I feel like if you don't really use them correctly, for example, if you want to use like an Oreo portal, it still will work out somehow because of the, you know, stun duration that you give a hunter when they take the portal too. So like overall for Priestess, still a part of Antiquarian and Friends, still a really good character to play, and you know, she's very bannable too. Then we're gonna have Coordinator. Coordinator will be a part of solo ranking. I wouldn't really put Coordinator on niche in rank, because of the fact that she gets countered by excitement. But, you know, if it's in tourney settings, I'll put her in niche, okay? If she's in tourney settings, I'll put her in niche. But since this is rank, Coordinator is a part of solo ranker. Coordinator has very good survivability. Yes, she only has 1 gun, but at least she still does have her innate trait of being when she is near pallets or windows, she gains this movement speed boost, and vol boost as well, in which usually and sometimes when you're running between pallets and you want to hide behind pallets when a hunter is about to hit you, this works out pretty well too. Overall for Coordinator, what I will say is yes, she's part of solo ranking. You can bring her with any persona traits you want. You don't even need to bring Titaner on her, simply because of the fact that when you rescue a survivor on chair, you could just gun the hunter and then use that as a mini Titaner and then go look for a chest and find an item for yourself, which is why, like for Coordinator, she is one of the only survivors that is actually viable without Titaner. Right? You usually see Coordinator quite a lot now in ranks and in tourney. Well, maybe not that much in ranks, but you see her a lot in tourneys because she assists in Cypher Rush. She doesn't have any slow decoding debuff early game. If your survivors can kite well, you would usually be able to decode about 80% Cypher Machine before a survivor actually gets down on the tear. Right, so like for Coordinator, she can still Cypher Rush, and even if you sell the survivor on chair, she will only have 25% decoding debuff if I'm not wrong. Yes, it is slow, but it is, but like it will be nullified when there's no survivor on chair right after you sell them. So like overall, what I would say, it's not a bad trade-off in that case scenario too. But overall for Coordinator, it really is just about solo containability. She has 1 gun. Yes, it'll get countered by excitement, which is why we put her in solo ranker. But even if it gets countered by excitement, at least your survivor knows that, okay, this hunter now has excitement. If we are next chase and they don't use trump card, that simply just means that, you know, they won't have an ability to use endgame if they use their ability too slow. So overall with Coordinator, solo ranking definitely. Next we have Mechanic. Mechanic is a part of Team Comp dependent, but I put her around above Doctor, I'd say. For now, Mechanic is at a really weird spot. First and foremost, she's against Opera Singer, she's against IV, the 2 current meta hunters, in which it means that it's very easy for these type of hunters to catch up towards survivors ASAP and land a hit on them, especially in rank as well when your teammates are pretty unreliable. Mech needing the decoding debuff she has initially without survivors getting injured is pretty important as well. You could say yes, she has her doll, and with her doll she can decode 2 cipher machines at once, but then, you know, usually for a Mechanic you do need to rotate around the map first to deploy a doll, and then just waste a little bit more time early game so you can be in a good area away from your doll to either contain or to decode. And you know, because of this, sometimes being rank, it's very unstable. Let's say it's not the right word, but like it's very unpredictable how sometimes your survivors might be able to kite 3 cipher machines without getting injured and you're able to finish 2 cipher machines by yourself, or they get a hit 20 seconds in towards the game. And you know, because of this as well, even if you don't get chased as mechanic, but your other survivor gets chased and they get hit immediately, that is quite a bit of a downside for you. But then, like, most of the times, you know, since this is high chase meta, like, you know, the Geisha, you know, the Opera, the Ivy, the Night Watch, etc, etc, because of this, usually these type of hunters will go after you anyways. If you do deploy your doll down early, if they find your doll and then they hit your doll, then they may not necessarily actually still go for you, because they know that, you know, with half a doll you can't really do much, and if you do aim for someone else and then get a hit on them early, then, you know, mech will have a decoding debuff and half a doll, in which it's not really, you know, the best for a mechanic. So it's really with just so much unpredictability in rank that mechanic will be a little bit low, a part of team comp dependence. Yes, she can still decode on chair, but even with her decoding on chair, can she contain for long against fast-paced hunters? No, not so much. Even if she does pull distance, fast chase hunters are still going to be able to catch up to her. And it's also with the introduction of warp. Even if you do put a doll far away and the hunter hits doll, they can just warp towards you, since you are indicated to them anyways. So because of that, mech will be a part of team comp dependent. Yes, her decoding is good, but that really is dependent on your teammates most of the time. I would say more or less, if you bring, you know, the muscle memory, you wouldn't have the vaulting debuff, which basically enhances her containability by quite a lot. But once again, she is a container, not a kiter. Is she fit her role for her role? Yes, but is it team comp dependent? Yes, it is as well. You need to rely on your teammates quite a bit in order for her to bring out her actual full potential. Now, some people may say, hey, you could use mechanics doll as a body blocker, in which I will say, you know what, that's not a bad idea. But also at the same time, that might work against slow-moving hunters. I wouldn't necessarily say it will work against, you know, the likes of Geisha, the likes of Ivy, the likes of Opera, when you have blink up as well. And, you know, when you put the doll down, yes, you can rotate for 2-3 seconds, but after that, they can just catch up towards you pretty fast as well. So, you know, with hunters that basically regenerate their items pretty fast and is pretty fast in general, those are kind of hard counters for mech as well. I would say chip hunters counter her too, with just their chips landing on the doll and then you rotating away. But of course, that is for, you know, that is depending on how you hide your doll. But anyways, mech is part of team comp dependence. Next we have Forward. Forward will be a part of solo ranker for me. We'll put Forward around this area, right behind Coordinator. And here's a few reasons why. Now, of course, you know, Forward is a pretty good harasser. Forward is a good enough rescuer, let's say. But his harass is his main best potential here. Overall for Forward, from what I would like to say is currently the harasser meta is kind of dying down a little bit more. With Forward in mind as well, it's really just because of the fact that he went down from niche to solo ranking, simply because of the fact that there's way more hunters now that counters him. For example, Soul Weaver got a buff. For example, Gamekeeper with his traps and hook. For example, Ivy. For example, Opera. For example, let's see, for example, who else again? There's also still Bonbon. That is a huge counter. And, you know, Waxardis. There also could be Night Watch with his dashes. There's just so many counters to Forward now that balloon harassing might not necessarily work all the time. And what does this mean? It simply just means that now you have to make kite harass in rank as well, right? What does it mean if you make kite harass? It simply just means that if your survivor gets hit early, you might have to go and help them early. It simply means that if you don't want to help them and they down within the next 20 seconds, that means your Cypher Machine isn't enough. Especially with your Cypher Machine decoding debuff as well. If I'm not wrong, it's 30% decoding debuff. Or 20% decoding debuff, but it's around that range, 20/30% decoding debuff. That simply means that, you know, your decoding is slowed down by a lot because of your teammate. And you could say, yes, you can definitely sell, but what does it mean when you sell? It means that you need to, your survivors need to rely a lot on rebound kiting. And by the time you sell, you're not even finished your Cypher Machine, or you're just finished your Cypher Machine, and your you know, your other teammate starts the second kite, And what does the second client mean? It means that they definitely have to contain because you're the rescuer here and you decode 30% slower. So then, like, if they don't kite at least a good, 70, 80 seconds, this game might be a lose game. But of course you can say, hey, I could harass, in which I will say, yes, you definitely can harass. But once again, in rank, it depends on what hunter they choose. Like, if they decided to choose Bonbon and you want to Mikai harass, you could definitely say, yes, it will work. But you have to Mikai harass, which means there's only one survivor decoding. But then if you decide that you want a balloon rescue, the possibility of you actually balloon rescuing is so low because Bonbon can just put bombs on the ground. A lot of fast chase hunters can just dash back and immediately pick up with Mischievous and drop down if you actually come near them. For the likes of Ivy, they can honestly just pick up the survivor, look at you, and then press their elevation skill to cancel it for you. Right? So then, like, for forward right now in this current day meta, he's not at the best spot, but he's still a good harasser. He's not bad. He's definitely good if you're playing rank alone. If you just want to harass and farm points, or just to rank up in seriousness, yes, forward will work. But because of the fact that, oh yeah, of course you're gonna harass, that's great, but it also depends on the hunter as well. There's just so many things in mind that you need to take into consideration. Oh, would they bring blink? Oh, if I stun the hunter, would they bring out warp? Would warp counter me? That's what you have to think now. Would warp counter me? If I launch stun the hunter and my survivor rotates away, if they have warp, your stun by technicality is useless. Because they're just going to be able to catch up immediately. So what does this mean? I wasted half a ball or even a third of my ball. And now right after the hunter used warp, my survivor went down. I basically lost a lot of decoding progress as well. So now for forward, he kind of does get countered by warp as well, if you think about it. He kind of does get countered by warp. So now on the odd occasion, if they still haven't used warp, yes, great for you. Good for you. You done what you have to do. But because there's still this possibility of warp, because there's still so many hunters that counter him, he's still good for rank, yes, but he's really a part of solo ranker for now. Because if you're in a team, most of the time the hunter will probably just try to counter you as well. By that note, like, they will most likely try to counter you. And like, even if you are a forward, if you come rescue against a chip hunter, there's still a high likely chance of you failing the rescue because there's just better rescuers out there. I would say Journalist is a better rescuer compared to forward because she can at least still guarantee the rescue if she wants to. But yeah, that's that for forward. Next we have TME. TME will be a part of tie guarantee. Once again, yes, TME got her buffs. TME now basically can walk and then gain a movement speed boost if she wants to. If I am not wrong, I think they nerfed TME's decoding. No, they didn't nerf TME's decoding boost. She's still the same. She's just overall a really good tie guarantee character. Now then, why wouldn't she be higher? Simply because of warp, simply because of quenching effect on warp. Now, it's way safer than peepers. Because a lot of times if you do spawn TME in, let's say, example hotel, or even, let's say, example hospital, back then the hunter will use peepers to spot you out. But then this time, right, knowing that a TME has to rotate, knowing that the hunter now can only need to wait 40 seconds until a warp is ready, and like 50 seconds until quenching effector is ready, that simply just means that TME might actually have to start rotating out early. And even if she does start rotating, once quenching effect pops, the hunter can just warp and catch up towards her immediately, right? So then for TME, yes, she got her buffs, but she's still a part of tie guarantee because it's just, it's just what it is. Like, by this case, yes, you waste 150 seconds early game for your survivors to kite, but that's about it. That's about it. Once the warp comes out, you most likely get a hit immediately because that's kind of how warp works. Anyways, with fast chase hunters, even with chip hunters, if you're in an area where you're hiding and you think the hunter is teleporting instead, you might have a little bit of a hard time there with yourself as well, So like, overall for TME, she can definitely waste hunters early game 50 seconds, allow your survivors to decode, but at max, I'd say at max she can probably buy you 70 seconds. On the odd occasion, you can definitely contain longer as TME, but it also depends on whether your survivors are decoding early game or not, because sometimes the hunter might just go annoy them and then wait for a quenching effect before they actually warp towards you. But overall, TME still a good enough character. Tight containment very good. Decoding very good. It's just, you know, the warp quenching effect, teleport, you know, all those shenanigans that counter her. Next we'll have Perfumer. Perfumer will be a part of solo ranking. She does have great containability, but you could say she can support if you consider body blocking as support. But aside from that, nah. Overall for Perfumer, she's a great container. She's absolutely brilliant by herself because her perfume is 9 seconds. It's basically not even long if you consider the fact that, you know, you do a basic. She gets perfume out, you do a basic hit. You have 3-second attack recovery animation. It's a basic 6-second you know, perfume cooldown, and you still have to catch up towards a survivor. And by the time you even manage to activate your basic hit, your perfume is already ready. Perfumer is jack shite. I'm joking. She's brilliant. She's a brilliant survivor. I hate her as a hunter. To be honest, I do hate her as a hunter pretty much. Her perfume 9 seconds. They did buff it. I think we've talked about this multiple times on stream as well. But like the buff was insane. I don't know which person on NetEase decides to say, "Hey, she needs a buff. Her perfume cooldown is too long. Let's buff her." Good. I can't wait to strangle the guy. I'm not gonna commit murder, but I'm gonna strangle him. Definitely. But you know, she is solo ranking. Aside from body blocking and just using her perfumes overall, she could switch out items, definitely yes. But what I would probably say is more or less for Perfumer, she's, aside from her own containability and body blocking from time to time, she can't really do much. Now, of course, she gets countered by Bonbon, she gets countered by Sculptor. If a Perfumer plays bad, she gets countered by Sculptor, but she definitely gets countered by Bonbon, right? So like, there's nothing we can say about that. Perfumer also gets countered by Anne right after you paralyze during her perfume mode. She also gets countered by Wax Artist if you get her stunned during perfume mode and wait a little bit before you hit her. She also gets countered by, who else is there that really counters her, I wonder? I don't think there's much. You could say Gamekeeper kind of counters her with the chips, but then she also counters Gamekeeper too, if she throws the perfume out early during Gamekeeper's hook animation. I guess you could say Perfumer counters Gamekeeper as well, but like, there's just characters that genuinely do counter Perfumer. But like, aside from that, Perfumer is great solo containment. Early game, Perfumer is great solo containment second Kai. Perfumer is great solo containment third Kai. As long as it's not a chip hunter, you're overall fine. You are overall fine. As long as it's not a chip hunter, nor is it Wax or Anne. In a nutshell, you're fine most of the time. So yeah, Perfumer is a pretty solid character to play when ranking up, definitely if you don't want to play slow decoders overall. Now the next we have Cowboy. Cowboy, I'm gonna put Cowboy a part of niche. Cowboy is pretty good now in my opinion, especially in rank. Not a lot of people play him, yes, but he is still good if you use him correctly, even if you do have a bad team. Overall for a Cowboy, he did go from team comp dependent to solo ranker last season to niche for me this season, because I think we have solidified Cowboy quite a bit over the, you know, over the buffs, over years of buffs, over the months of buffs, let's say. Even if you're a survivor down in a really bad area, you can almost immediately just use your instant lasso to hook the survivor and then rotate the survivor towards another better area to contain, in which A, you give the survivor 10% extra struggle speed boost, and you give them an extra 10 to 15% extra struggle progress against the hunter. Because by technicality, when the hunter picks up the survivor and drops down the survivor gains extra struggling, you know, progress, not process. And this also applies for Cowboy. If Cowboy manages to hook a survivor down, it also increases the struggle process. What does this mean? Not only is Cowboy good in solo ranker, he's a definite, you know, he's a way more better a harasser or supporter compared to Forward if used correctly. Now Forward does have many perks, but because of Forward's many perks, that doesn't mean that, you know, Cowboy can't also do it too. Yes, Cowboy has higher skill ceiling compared to Forward right now, that's definitely for sure. If you can land your lasso 100% of the time, then you're definitely better than a Forward. And it's also with the fact that in nowadays scenario, even if your survivor does jack shite and decides to down near a chair, you can almost always instant lasso them and then throw them towards a little bit of further area, contain for them for, you know, around 5-6 seconds, and by the time the hunter picks up the survivor, you most likely will have your lasso ready in 1/2 seconds, in which they're walking towards the chair. You can still lasso them down. And it's really just with the fact that Cowboy's lasso, his lasso, how do you call it, logic is a little bit weird sometimes as well. He can lasso through walls, but then you can say the same for Gamekeeper. So, you know, you have Cowboy and then you have Gamekeeper. I guess that's an even exchange. But overall for Cowboy, yes, he does have 10% decoding debuff, but, you know, aside from that, he has great, you know, harass potential. Even support potential is great as well. If there's an Anne and then your survivor gets the cash on them, you as a Cowboy can lasso the survivor towards you. And then during that time, Anne will be too far away to even stun you, so, you know, yada yada who. Good for you. Just honestly brilliant. In my opinion, Cowboy is definitely niche, but of course some of you might think differently, in which of course, you know, feel free to voice your opinion down in the comments, but for me he's definitely niche for now. Now we will have Female Dancer. Female Dancer is pretty niche for me too. Female Dancer works really well in basically any areas with high palette, high density of palette, in which basically anywhere in any map, realistically speaking. In Arms Factory or Middle works, in Church, Middle or Graveyard work, in Church anywhere works, in a hospital anywhere works, in Chinatown. In Chinatown I'd say it's mainly the 2 stories and the highly density palette areas, and restaurants. That's kind of where Female Dancer shines the most in Chinatown. Ever Sleeping Town almost anywhere works. What else did we miss? Leo Memories almost anywhere works, but of course Factory is the most efficient one, let's say. And then you have other maps like I don't really know anymore off the top of my head, but you know, overall they all do work pretty well for Female Dancer. Female Dancer can decode fast with fast music box if she wants to early game. If you don't want to support your survivors at all, Female Dancer can rotate around early game if her cipher machine's locked, and then deploy slow music boxes then for her survivor, whoever is first containment. So then like survivors have easier time to contain with a slow music box, forcing the hunter to break them. Female Dancer can, in a nutshell, allow a very successful rebound kite containment with a slow music box. If she doesn't want to support early game, but if she wants to support rebound kite, that's honestly good as well, because Female Dancer, right after decoding her cipher machine, can put down the slow music box near certain areas in where the survivor are charred and allow them to have an easier time to rebound kite. Yes, that could definitely work as well. Female Dancer can swap out items right after finishing up all using all her music boxes. That's also a plus. Female Dancer doesn't necessarily have any decoding debuff, any buffs in general, so that's a buff. Female Dancer has a movement speed buff when she vaults down from 2-story or elevation areas. That's also a buff. So, you know, overall for Female Dancer, you can run flywheel or window speed boost or tide depending on the map, depending on the scenario. She's pretty much an overall very niche survivor for me. She does have quite a lot. Now, I don't really see any fault in Female Dancer, aside from the fact that she does of course need to place down music box and then get an item for herself, but you know, that's not too bad. That's honestly, you know, speaking, not too bad. Her music boxes, I'm quite sure, disappears 5 minutes after it was being placed down, or 2:30, but I'm quite sure it was 5 minutes the last time we checked the tournament video. But aside from that, she's really niche for me. Then you will be able to see Seer. Seer is a part of Antiquarian and Friends, regardless of what happens. I know a lot of people say, oh, in rank Seer isn't good, but in tourney he's good, in which, oh, of course I wouldn't disagree if you said that, but I still feel like overall for Seer, he is still a pretty good survivor in general when it comes to, you know, assisting first kite, assisting rebound kite, assisting rescue. If you're against chip hunters and you feel like your rescuer might not be able to do the rescue, but you still have your owl, you could definitely say, oh, you know what, I can just give the owl to my survivor so then they can just instant rescue. And then like, even if they're almost about after half, just give the owl instant rescue. That's like a no damage rescue overall, like for the rescuer, you know. And then like if the hunter decides to say, oh, I want a ton of those survivors that's uncharted, that's great for your rescuer, because your rescuer can just stay nearby and maybe not rescue and sell instead. But overall the Seer is still pretty good. He doesn't really have any debuff aside from his vaulting debuff right after using his owl. But you know, I would genuinely say because of the fact of how long Seer is out and how fast he can actually get his owl back, especially with tight containment as well against, you know, these fast chase hunters in general, he could definitely get a second owl out right before he goes down onto chair, or just right after he gets rescued immediately. For all the good Seers out there that I have seen, they can 100% get an owl out immediately. Most of these here basically kite while looking back. Now, what I will say is they don't look back, as in like they don't put their full screen looking at the hunter. They put like a quarter of it looking at the hunter, so they can still somehow see in front of them too, in which it greatly basically assists their containment. I feel like for a lot of Seer players or early Seer players right now, they're containing as if they have to look at the hunter in the face. Like they have to put their full screen at the hunter's face for them to gain an owl, in which, you know, you don't necessarily have to do that. A quarter of a screen is definitely more than enough, and with just a quarter of a screen you can move between front and back quite easily, so then like you don't have to do heavy finger movement to like, oh, I need to 180 degree turning front and I need 180 degree turning back. You could just do 45 to 90 in situations like these, in which it will be easier for you as well, right? But then like overall for Seer, still a part of Antiquarian and Friends, still a very good character. Next we will have Embalmer. Embalmer is a part of tie guarantee. Now a lot of people might say, hey, but Embalmer is really good endgame when it comes to, you know, oh, coffin, when it comes to death stat the other, when it comes to, oh, rebound kite containment, because I can just put my coffin down where there's no cipher machine so the hunter can teleport. My friends, warp is now a thing to counter Embalmer. I generally do think, with a lot of things in mind, I feel like a lot of the tie guarantee characters who definitely can go into solo ranker because of their recent buffs and because of the recent meta changes, they can definitely go into solo ranking. But because of the fact that we still do have the new introduction of warp, they do get countered pretty hard. Embalmer's coffin will be indicated towards the hunter of the location it is, and the hunter, if they have warp, of course most of the time they will save it up for warp, they'll just warp towards the survivor. They will just warp towards the survivor. It is pretty common that things like that will happen. Even if you're an Embalmer and you rotate far away from your coffin, if the hunter has warp, they're most likely not going to use it on you. They're going to use it on you right after you use it on you during first kite or second kite. They're going to use it on you when you coffin yourself. Because, you know, you're an Embalmer, you don't have really anything to contain with except for that coffin to sell revive and let your survivors to cipher rush. No, aside from that, you don't have anything to contain with. Now, of course, you cannot swap out items as well, because you can regenerate those coffins when you do a rescue, when you perform a rescue, but, you know, overall for Embalmer, still a very tie guarantee type of character. He is definitely good in rank if you are playing alone and you feel like you'll definitely beat first chase. And then you're like, oh, if I contain bad, I can just self-rescue, so my survivors can cipher rush. So at least it still has 3 cipher machine containment, in which I will say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's a tie guarantee type of character, right? But then, like, you could also sometimes say, hey, if I'm not first kite, I can just run towards the chair, look at my survivor for 3 seconds, because, you know, as long as the Embalmer can see the survivor, it doesn't really matter how far you're really away from them. As long as you can see their faces, that's all what it matters. Rotate away, put a coffin down, and then allow them to self-resurrect themselves. So then, like, then you can cipher rush with your other survivors. In which, you know what, it's still a tie guarantee if your survivor does jack shite. Honestly, if your survivor does dog water, if your survivor basically downs in 5 seconds, it's still a tie guarantee. Yes, you might waste some time to put the coffin down, but it's kind of worth it at the end of the day if you can get that warp out. So overall for Embalmer is still a very good tie guarantee type of survivor. Now then, we will be able to see Prospector. Prospector will move up from solo ranking to niche right now because he's one of those characters that really work well for some reason, and I don't know why. I do think that Prospector is probably one of the few harassers that didn't really receive any buffs or nerfs, and his solo containment is pretty good, and he doesn't really have any decoding debuff as well. I'm quite sure this guy also has a healing buff. So wait, he probably doesn't have a healing buff, but you know, like, he does have a healing buff, doesn't he? He definitely does. Of course, there's a 10% healing buff, right? But like, aside from that, Prospector went up from solo ranker to niche for me because I feel like he has a lot to play around. I generally do feel like he has a lot to play around, especially with the introduction of Cheerleader. Even though he doesn't need to be paired up with Cheerleader, I feel like for Prospector writing, he's at a really good area because he can definitely waste a lot of the Hunter's time when it comes to balloon harassing, when it comes to containment early game. He's pretty much a really solid character. I mean, like last season he was last season I think I also put him on niche. I definitely did, right? But then like, you know, last season with all the things considered, there were more characters that are kind of better than him, that shine better than him, that were used more than him. But I guess for this season, a lot of tourney videos, what I'm seeing, they're trying to use Prospector to counter Ivy, which I guess okay, you could give it a try, but I still don't think it will work. But I feel like for rank, he's pretty solid. He's still pretty solid. Last season he's part of niche as well. He's not part of solo ranking. I probably would never put him part of solo ranking, but like he does have 6 seconds on his magnet cooldown, but then if you throw the magnet down early, it doesn't really matter. One thing a lot of survivors forget about is the fact that you guarantee a 2.7 second stun or 3 second stun if you can balloon rescue. So regardless of Prospector's debuff, when there's a survivor, when there are a moving survivor within 40 meters of him and the hunter, that debuff doesn't really apply if you're doing balloon rescue. Now, of course, for harassing, if you harass well, you will always your stun won't, you will always land that guaranteed 3 second stun. But then like if you don't do well, for example, if you try to tie kite harass, I would say yes, that will be a double-edged sword on you. But most of the time Prospector mains will just stand behind the hunter, throw the magnet out, and then pull the hunter back while your other survivor is rotating further away, in which this allows their survivor to pull more distance, contain for longer, and this allows for Prospector to maximize his stun duration on the magnets as well. But overall for Prospector, no decoding debuff. He does decode pretty well. He most like, I'm not too sure. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I read the patch notes, but I haven't seen anything about them saying that they nerf Prospector's golden calibration. Because Prospector decodes really fast because of how easy it is for him to get his golden calibration. Right, like a lot of the times you may say, hey, the area is small for actually getting a successful calibration, but because of the fact that the area is small for getting a successful calibration, most of the times Prospector mains always get that perfect golden calibration, in which it boosts their cipher machines up by 1/2%, in which, you know, if you get a lot of that, you basically decode your cipher machine so fast to the point that it's like a huge thing, especially in high ranks too. But overall for Prospector, you're getting magnet speed boost when you're near lockers and cipher machine, so that's great. You can use the, you know, environment to advantage as well. Whenever you need that movement speed boost, you can always move faster than the hunter. So like if you can, sometimes you're going to be able to actually dodge a normal hit from the hunter. But overall for Prospector, I don't really think he has any debuffs. But of course he does have a really good harass. I'm quite sure he has a healing buff and a decoding buff too. He is pretty high on this list of, you know, the survivor tier list for season 32. Next we'll have Enchantress. Enchantress will be a part of solo ranking as well. Overall for Enchantress, I would say more or less I put her a little bit higher than tie guarantee, simply because of the fact that she does gain 3 stacks right after she gets rescued. So, you know, she can at least still guarantee a tie, but she's pretty much a really good, decent container herself early game. Mid to late game maybe not so much, but early game definitely for sure. Overall for Enchantress, she has no items early game. She slowly gains items as the game goes by, and I think with with Enchantress, it's really just with the fact that, you know, okay, you get your first stack fast and early, great. You get your second stack soon, right after you use the first stack, and when the hunter hits you, you'll also gain a stack as well. And per each stack, the next stack recharge rate is 11% slower. Now, of course, some people might think, oh, this is actually pretty bad because it gets slower all the time. But, you know, honestly, for Enchantress, though, most of the time, if she is able to use all her stacks before she goes down, for example, if she goes down without using all 3 of her stacks, that usually means that she can rebound kite. But if Ench goes down with barely any stacks left onto her hands, then it kind of just usually means that she's done pretty much a really good containment. Overall for Enchantress, yes, Desperate Fight counters her, which is why we don't necessarily want to, you know, use Enchantress as a harasser. Enchantress's harass is also really bad as well, simply because of the fact that when she's near a survivor, her regenerability on her curse stacks, I'm quite sure is 50% longer, or is it 70% longer, but it is definitely way longer, so it's way harder for Ench to actually get her stacks when she is near survivors, when she wants to harass, which means her balloon rescue and her Minkai harass is really bad, as that has been nerfed before. If that has been nerfed, I would definitely put Ench up in niche, but for now she's definitely still a part of solo ranking. She is a really good, you know, solo container, but when it comes to harass and balloon rescue, yes, it does depend on the situation. Now Enchantress does have healing debuff, in which these healing debuff, these healing debuff in a nutshell, you could consider them as a, how do I say, a trade offer. You heal her slowly, but in exchange, whichever survivor that was healing Enchantress gets hit, and she gets an extra stack. In which, in this case scenario, you could probably say, okay, maybe her balloon harass here works, but then, like, you know, since the stun's duration is so, you know, short anyways, yes, you could body block, but if you have more stacks, then I guess it kind of works out in that sense as well, because, you know, you need to hit the survivor twice, and hitting the survivor twice means you get 2 free stacks, and 2 free stacks means if you manage to balloon rescue once and you didn't body block, at least you still have a second chance for yourself to use if you were not first chase. So overall for Enchantress, I can't put her on high guarantee because of that. She doesn't really have any debuff except for a healing debuff, so yeah, and just part of solo ranking. Then we will have Wildling. Wildling will be a part of team comp dependence. Wildling will be a part of team comp dependent. I'm not going to put Wildling on unreliable anymore because of his recent buffs as well. Overall for Wildling, he's 100% team comp dependent. It's also hunter dependent too. Why? Because if the hunters decided to go Gamekeeper, if the hunter decided to go Wax Artist, if the hunter decided to go Breaking Wheel, these are the type of characters that counter Wildling when he is on his board. Right, but then like overall, aside from that, can't put him on high guarantee as well because of his slow decoding. Can't put him on, you know, solo ranker, anything higher, because, you know, yes, he is a guarantee rescuer, but because of the fact that he is a guarantee rescuer, that also means that he might actually be a double down rescuer too. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is when you get on Moodle, when you get on your board to go to rescue one of your survivors, if this survivor of yours, right, if this survivor of yours, you manage to rescue it, but then since your movement debuff, when you get off your board, there's a huge chance of you getting a double hit scenario, and when you get double down and your survivor isn't going to be able to contain whoever was on chair, double down is really bad, especially for your team when you want to cypher rush, when you want to get the last 2 cypher machine done, in which you can't. Maybe it could be a win game, but it ended up being a tie game instead, because there was a double down scenario in which you force one of your survivors to actually come to rescue, and then you're down on the ground, you have to use up self-heal, and by the time your survivor rescues, you just managed to get up and start decoding the last cipher machine. That is pretty bad on Wildling's case, but that's only one of the cons of Wildling. Wildling is still pretty good overall. He guarantees the rescue. Yes, he does give presence to Hunter. Yes, he does cancel attack recovery animation to the Hunter, but at least he's a very good body blocker. He moves fast, he's able to push back Hunters, he's able to get 20% board charge immediately when he gets on Moodle, and you know, he does have pretty much a lot of stuff that basically guarantees him for the rescue, but because he is also a character that can definitely get double down because of his movement debuff, depending on where the chair is, he's not better than any of the hunters out there, any of the rescuers out there for now. You could argue Mercy's better, you could argue Gravekeeper's better because, you know, he rescues fast right after getting out of his burrow state, but if he gets hit out of his burrow state, then it's basically a no damage rescue, so there's no chance for a double down. I'd say Coordinator's probably good as well, you know, no double down scenario because of her gun, and even Journalist no double down scenario too. But for Wildling, yes, you can definitely get towards his chair, but then like you're still faced off against, oh, it's going to be definitely could be a double down situation. Is it rare? Yes, it's rare, but is it likely to happen? Yes, it's still very likely to happen. But you know, like with all things in mind, still a very good body blocker, still a very good, you know, rescuer. But when it comes to double down scenario, those are the things that you have to consider. And he also decodes really slow as well, if I'm not wrong, compared to the other rescuers, aside from forward. But there is that. Then you'll be able to see Acrobat. Acrobat will be a part of niche. Acrobat is a really good container. Not a lot of people sleep on him. He's used pretty often as well, whether in rank or in tourneys. He initially gets 3 balls early game, in which he can slowly stack up to 6. He gets 1 mud ball from rescue, 1 fireball from containing 60 seconds, and 1 snowball with 150% Cypher Machine decoding progress. What does this mean? This means that an Acrobat is at least guaranteed 4 balls throughout the game. Well, if he's not first chase, he can finish decoding a Cypher Machine and then decode another one at 50%. So that's a guaranteed 4 ball end game. He's guaranteed 4 balls early kite because he's 3 balls early game and he gets his fireball 60 seconds in towards the containment. And this, you know, 60 seconds for 3 balls. You use 1 ball each for 20 seconds. You might bring flywheel, which buys you another 10 seconds. You might spam some pallets, vault some windows, which also buys you some extra seconds. Those fireballs will almost always be a guarantee for you as an Acrobat. And of course, the mud ball, if you do decide to bring Titaner, or if you just said, hey, I finished my Cypher Machine, why don't I go rescue? You're guaranteed that ball anyways. You're definitely guaranteed that ball anyways. Even if you do bring Titaner, you're probably guaranteed 5 balls, because you know, you decode a Cypher Machine, go rescue, that's 1 more ball. You decode a second Cypher Machine 50%, that's a snowball. That's 5 balls for you already throughout the game. You know, so like with all things into consideration, Acrobat is still a very good character. We've talked about him multiple times already in the past, so I won't really extend this. He doesn't really have any debuffs aside from gate opening buff. A gate opening debuff in which it takes him, I'm quite sure, 20% longer. It takes him 26 seconds to open the gate compared to 18 seconds, so that's like maybe 50% longer to open the gate, if I'm not wrong. But aside from that, he doesn't really have any debuffs aside from endgame. You just can't put him on an exit gate. I mean, the exit gate opening speed is fast anyways, but if you put Acrobat on the exit gate, maybe you might lose that tie and then end up as a loss. So don't put him on the gate. Aside from that, he is a very good character. Then we have First Officer. First Officer is a guarantee rescue type character. First Officer is also one of this character that when he uses his items, he can guarantee a 20-25 second containment. For example, if a First Officer is crouching wanting to rescue a survivor right before half, and if the hunter found them immediately, First Officer can use their pocket watch and then start buying time. A First Officer typically uses 2 of his activations and then goes into rescue, and then uses his 3rd activation to guarantee no double down scenario, in which is why I say First Officer is kind of better than Wildling in this case scenario. But of course, some of you may say, but hey, First Officer gets countered by Patroller, in which I will counter that by saying, look, no one's going to bring Patroller against First Officer unless they're dream much. Right, no one's gonna do that unless you're a dream witch. And then you can say, hey, Bonbon counters First Officer, though, in which I will say, yes, he does. He does. I won't disagree with you, but that's only one of the... That's like just 1 out of all your 26 hunters that counters First Officer. There's just 1. There's just really that 1 that counters. But like overall, First Officer 20% decoding debuff. For each pocket watch he uses, he gains a 7% decoding boost, in which it'll stack up to 14% max. Meaning if you find a 3rd pocket watch in a chest, it won't stack up past 14%. So like with that in mind, look, it's pretty okay. Right after his first rescue, he only has a 14% decoding debuff. It's faster compared to the other rescuers. You might say, hey, it doesn't really matter much, in which I will say, hey, you know, 7% is 7%, you'll take it. You might as well take it. This 7% will definitely help you with the Cypher Machine decoding progress mid to late game, but aside from that, very good guarantee rescuer. If he forces his pocket watch early in the early game as well, he wouldn't be punished that much because he'll just decode faster, and he's still a very good guaranteed rescuer overall. Then you're gonna have Barmaid. Barmaid is gonna be a part of the niche category too. Overall for Barmaid right now, I would put Barmaid a little bit on the lower side of niche, simply because of the fact that Warp kind of counters Barmaid pretty hard. If you think about it this way, right, Warp is only 40 seconds. by the time you get a hit on Barmaid, it's probably 40 seconds in towards the game. You as a hunter warp towards the Barmaid. If you're a fast chase hunter, you can catch up towards her even faster and get her down immediately without Barmaid actually successfully healing. If you're a slow chase hunter, you might as well need to deploy your bombs, deploy your fences, deploy your chip, whatever chip scenario you have, and get the chip on Barmaid or even push back. But overall for Barmaid, because of this, I'm putting her on low niche. Yes, warp is an issue, but she still does have doubling speed boost, in which when the hunter warps, she can just doubling speed boost and wait and still manages to heal. I know I've said a lot of bad things about Barmaid because of warp, but because Barmaid still has that doubling speed boost, even if the hunter does warp, it'll give Barmaid more than enough reaction time to drink the doubling speed boost and rotate away fast to get that heal up. So then, like for Barmaid, the chances of you actually getting down because of warp is still low, but it's not none. It's still low, but it's not none. Right, so, but like overall for Barmaid, once you get the heal, you can immediately get another doubling with in 2 seconds, and by that time you get a hit, you can just drink a doubling immediately and see how it goes. But usually in those case scenarios, you kind of force yourself to do the doubling because you feel like you can't contain any longer, or you don't have any room for containment anymore. So you're like, hey, why don't I just get this doubling ready? Since I'm a full health anyway, it doesn't take me that long to get the doubling ready, so I'll just get it ready and let's see how it goes after I drink it. Or maybe you can save that doubling for rebound kite containment if they don't have Tightener, and of course the harasser comes to harass and allows you to drink free 16-second containment to get that max health again. Yes, that is definitely still a possibility, but overall Barmaid's still a part of niche. She does get 5% decoding debuff when she drinks a doubling, or when she gives a doubling towards another survivor. They get a 5% decoding debuff, but you know, in exchange for that, like, you're not wasting 15 seconds healing a survivor, so that's not a bad exchange. Honestly, that's not a bad exchange, and this is especially good for rescuers like Mercenary, rescuers like Ford who needs to harass, rescuers like Wildling who need to go rescue. It's just overall really good for rescuers when they need to get that immediate heal and then go rescue for the second time. Overall, Barmaid still a really good container. She does get countered by Bomb, but also she doesn't, because she can just be doubling away with no pull away. So yeah, there's that. Next we will have Postman. Postman will be... I'm kind of contemplating putting Postman between Team Comp dependent and unreliable, but for now I will put Postman in Team Comp dependent. Postman has not received any buffs or nerfs, but I would say he went from solo ranker down to Team Comp dependent now, simply because of the meta changes and simply because of other survivors getting buffed. Right, so you know, for example, you know, like for example, Postman decoding buff. What do we have now? We have Faro Lady now. We have Prisoner. We have just better decoders overall. That doesn't necessarily need that letter. Or you may say, hey, but what about his Inspire, his Vault buff? Yes, his Vault buff is more or less team comp dependent. It only works with slow vaulters like Mechanic, like Mind's Eye, like Doctor, like Priestess. There's not a lot of characters that actually vault slow. And then you might say, hey, what about his window buff? His window buff works with anyone overall, yes, but the biggest issue for Postman is his solo containability. It's really bad right now. Postman has Wick, and what does Wick means? Wick simply means that he can slow down this hunter for 5 seconds if the dog manages to bite. But what does our current meta entail? Our current meta entails fast movement paced hunters, distance closing hunters, map control hunters, all these type of hunters that are able to close the distance between themselves and Postman immediately, to the point that his item is kind of useless aside from his supportability. His supportability is also very team comp dependent. It depends on what survivors is on his team. It depends on whether or not, if you give the decoding letter to your survivors, can they contain, are they going to be first chase, or are they just going to run around and be like an idiot? His dungeon letter is still good. Yes, it did get nerfed before, but it is still good. Like, it's like being able to highlight the dungeon location is still very good, even though there's a 100-second cooldown. But like 120 seconds is basically able to give you more than enough time to look around the map and say, okay, I know where dungeon is now. There's no need for me to actually need this letter anymore, unless I'm opening the gate, right? But then like for Postman, it's really just solo containment, I think, is just really bad against current meta. And with the current meta in mind, it's blech. You have warp to catch up immediately even if the dog bites you. You have, you know, What else do you have? You have warp if they like, I don't know. Look, I just genuinely don't know. He just feels really bad right now. I don't know how to explain it to you, but then like no one's using him anymore, which I do understand why. Warp counters him. Warp counters his dogs. He gets blinked down easily, and there's Fast Chase Hunter, Night Watch. There's, you know, there's Night Watch. There's Opera. There's Ivy. Yes, he has his move and speed boost as well for 10% for 30 seconds. But you know, that's pretty good. I won't lie, that is pretty good. But aside from that, there's not really much to say about Postman. He doesn't have any debuffs, but he doesn't excel at anything as well. There's just other survivors better than him. Please tell me I'm wrong as well. You know, if you feel like it's different. But he just feels very underwhelming right now. Yes, he was good like 6 seasons back, but he's kind of like Mechanic right now, where he fell off immensely because of all the other character buffs like Explorer, like, you know, Thief, just overall a lot of other shenanigans, to be fair with you. So yeah, Postman's part team comp dependent for me. Next we'll have Gravekeeper. Gravekeeper will be a part of Solo Ranker. I'll put Gravekeeper on Solo Ranker since he is still a very good rescuer overall. For Gravekeeper, he can use a shovel to get towards the chair, and then like Gravekeeper is like a better version of Wildling in a sense, except for the fact, well, yeah, Gravekeeper is like a better version of Wildling in a sense. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because of the fact that, for me personally, Wildling can body block, but with a Gravekeeper having a shovel on the ground, he moves 10% faster. Yes, Mudo moves faster too, but Gravekeeper moves 10% faster. Gravekeeper is allowed to stand behind the survivor at all times, and when the hunter hits, the hunter will always target Gravekeeper shovel form first, which means, compared to Wildling, if the hunter decides to side attack hit against a Wildling body blocking, the hunter sometimes can hit the survivor that was actually on chair. But if it's Gravekeeper, even if you do side attack, you're targeting Gravekeeper first regardless of what happens. Aside from that, all the guaranteed rescuers and guaranteed body blocks, Gravekeeper is also really good at looping. Right, Gravekeeper is also really good at looping. With Gravekeeper's loops in mind, he's able to loop short palette areas in which it basically distorts the hunter's vision. Like if you loop in a short palette area and you keep looping there, the hunter's gonna have a really hard time to see where your head is. Like it's like looking at a snake, but the snake's head is like very similar to its body, and the snake has their eyes closed. You need to hit the head of the snake to kill the snake. You need to hit the head of the shovel to get Gravekeeper out of burrow mode, which I would say it is pretty hard when you're tie kiting. It is pretty hard, especially with the 10% movement speed boost as well. It benefits Gravekeeper a lot, even if he is first chase. Now, Gravekeeper paired with Cheerleader usually would end up as, oh yeah, I use 2 shovels and you don't even get a hit on me 60 seconds in towards the game. But, you know, even when a GK gets hit in shovel, yes, the hunter regenerates 20% faster, but during that time, Gravekeeper can just put down pallets where he was tie kiting, so like, it's not that much of an issue. It's not really that much of an issue for Gravekeeper. So Gravekeeper, he's decoding debuff as a rescuer, which is normal. He can guarantee the rescue, he can guarantee getting towards a chair, he can guarantee body block, he can guarantee kite early game as well for 60 seconds for sure. So like for me, Gravekeeper overall, it's just a really good character. Like he counters walk starters, he counters Gamekeeper's first hook because he doesn't get hooked back. Yes, Gamekeeper forces Gravekeeper out of shovel mode, but like he doesn't get pulled back. So that's pretty much a really good plus for Gravekeeper. Right, he gets into shovel mode, and then his cooldown of shovel goes, into cooldown immediately as well. So like, it's overall not too bad for Gravekeeper. He did receive pretty decent buffs as well, in which he gets into burrow mode fast and he gets out of burrow mode fast. But you know, yada who. Really good rescuer. Next we will have Prisoner. I'm thinking either between Niche or Solo Ranker right now. I will say Niche. Prisoner is a pretty good decoder as well. He is second to none compared to Lawyer, and he counters Ivy. And I do think it's because of the fact that he counters Ivy, which what makes him good as well, which is why tournament player choose him as well. But overall, I would say for Prisoner is he is still pretty bad if he gets found first, so he's really low niche for now. So what does Prisoner have? Prisoner has an initial 105 decoding speed boost. He gains an extra 5% when he links up the Cipher Machine and then decodes the Cipher Machine he has linked. So in total, he has 110 decoding speed boost. Prisoner can speed up Survivor Cipher Machine. For example, Prisoner can speed up the Rescuer Cipher Machine. So then like he can push the Rescuer Cipher Machines ASAP, just so the Rescuer can immediately go rescue and not come back to the Cipher Machine anymore because Prisoner can finish it for him. Prisoner can also push Cipher Machines that are really far away from him. For example, there's a Cipher Machine that's at 80% and Prisoner starts a new Cipher Machine. Prisoner can link the Cipher Machines up together and push open that 80% Cipher Machine by himself, staying in the same location. In exchange for that, of course, Prisoner loses 5 to 15% transmission rate. He loses 5 to 15% decoding speed for the other Cipher Machine, simply because of the fact that, you know, he needs to push out the Cipher, he needs to decode his Cipher Machine too, and it depends on the distance usually. This might seem really bad for Prisoner, but this is honestly speaking really good, especially against hunters that want to camp ciphers. Right, and I guess really it's just it's just the fact that if you can push Cipher Machines to finish in really bad areas, that's kind of where Prisoner shines as well. For example, if there's a Cipher Machine middle, you usually want to finish off that Cipher Machine first, just so you know there's no tripling of road endgame and there is no like chances of Hunter getting a mysterious hit on a survivor, just less of a chance for survivors to make a mistake because of that one Cipher Machine in middle. But what does it also mean? It also simply just means that for Prisoner himself, he doesn't have the move. He doesn't have rotate to find another Cipher Machine. Well, I guess that's in exchange for the transmission loss. But if you think about it right, if you're on one side of the map and the Cipher Machine is on the other side of the map, if it takes you 20 seconds to decode that, if it takes you 20 seconds to get towards that 80% Cipher Machine, you might as well just link up and just decode it from your own area instead of running up and then running back down. So it saves you a lot of time for Prisoner too. Prisoner also has Electrocute, in which this Electrocute stuns a hunter for 1 second and it's rechargeable. It's rechargeable throughout the game. The description says as long as there's Cipher Machines left, it's recharged. It recharges endgame too because apparently the exegates count as Cipher Machines too when you're decoding it. Right, so then like it's just rechargeable, and because of this rechargeability, you usually be able to have an extra run right after you use the first one, whether it's for rebound kite containment or whether it's for, you know, just the second containment if you contain really well. But overall for Prisoner, the only debuff he has is the fact that he has a shortest terror radius, in which it means that you get alerted slower when the hunter is near you. What does this mean? This means that if a survivor gets a heartbeat when the hunter is 30 meters within range, Prisoner is 15 meters within range. So that's the only debuff. So I guess like with the bell icon, you probably do know yourself when the hunter is going to come to you or not, so you can rotate early out. Anyways, but overall for Prisoner, it's still a very good niche character. Next will be Entomologist. Entomologist is still a part of niche. Entomologist is actually pretty highly niche, especially with the fact that she can contain and assist most of the time as well by staying idolized in one area. For Entomologist, it's usually like she has normal decoding speed, which is good. She has high containability as well, which is really good. And I guess the thing that you can't really sleep on is her support ability. For Entomologist herself, we all know that, you know, she can assist survivors to get on bees, and when survivors are on bees, you can, you know, dodge skill effects like the what can you dodge? You can dodge skill effects like the Spish from Soul Weaver, the Foggy Blade from Ripper, and even the Hook from Gravekeeper as well. So like with Entomologist, you could just, like, the survivor could get on your beast, or you could just support honestly, with the bees to block the hunter from going into the survivor or just block the skill effects in general. Now for Entomologist bees, she's able to retract the bees towards her or just make it go straight in towards cooldown, whatever it suits her best depending on the situation. Of course, per each time she does this, there's a 3-second cooldown. So of course, sometimes you might see Entomologist mains just completely getting rid of the bees to save the bees and make it go into 20-second cooldown instead of putting more distance. That's kind of the only reasons why. Overall for Entomologist, she has such great containability and such great support. She can even be ran with flywheels sometimes, or tie turner if you really want to do. So I sometimes do it by tie turner, because just by going on Entos B and start pulling distance early on towards the game, even if the hunter wants to chase you, they're gonna have to spend at least 30 to 40 seconds just to even catch up to you, and then getting rid of your bees as well, which is one of the main issues of, you know, hunter chasing after Entomologist. Now of course, we also do know that if the hunter decides to not actually hit the Entos bees, the hunter's movement speed gets reduced by 70 to 80% if I'm not wrong. So that's a huge movement speed reduction when walking past the bees. So like sometimes you can even just force the hunter to get a basic hit out, but then it won't necessarily hit the bees, because you can just recollect the bees and put it into cooldown. Overall for Entomologist, she's a very niche character. She's a very good character. I wouldn't put her above meta because she does have certain counters like Bonbon and Wax Artist, but aside from that, she is still a very good character to play. I know a lot of people sleep on her, but that's also probably because of the fact that there are more characters out to play right now, and Entomologist is, I'd say she's old enough to be considered old in the game right now. So yeah, and another good thing about Entomologist is really just the fact that when the hunter hits a survivor and the hunter's in attack animation recovery, you as the Ento can use your bees to push back the hunter and push him towards a corner. We also do know the Ento suits really well paired up with Antiquarian, because you can't do a basic hit and the Ento's bee will just push you back, so there's something to keep in mind there as well. But overall, Ento is still very niche. Next we will have Painter. Painter will now go up a part of the solo ranking tier, and there is quite a few reasons for that. Painter, after he received his buff previous season, he was a part of Team Comp dependent or even unreliable. But for current season onwards, because of the fact that he can start painting from 66% onwards, and he can drop down the painting when he paints it at 66%, it makes him way more reliable. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because of the fact that that simply just means that now Painter can actually just drop down a palette and then look backwards when the hunter is breaking the palette. He can get his painting and start painting. That's one of the biggest reasons why. Because back then during the good old days when you actually had to drop down at least 2 pallets for the painter to get the hunter's face fully, that was pretty unreliable, especially with a lot of the hunters who can actually moonwalk. Painter couldn't really do much against scenarios like that. But now after his buff, being able to start painting at 66% rate and being able to put down the painting early at 66%, it makes him way more viable as a character. And what does that also mean? That also means that he gains his 2% movement speed boost pretty early on in towards the game as well, if he decides to drop down his paintings early, and he can swap out items, whatever is necessary. This also simply does means that when you go into rescue, the moment you actually see the hunter's face for 1/2 seconds, it's more than enough to get a painting and start assisting your survivors. Overall for Painter, he doesn't really have any debuff aside from the fact that he'll be shown to the hunter for 5 seconds if I'm not wrong, highlighted in red. Depending on your settings, it might be a different color, but for the normal settings, he will be highlighted in red, and you're going to be able to, and the hunter's going to be able to see Painter's location for 5 seconds. But of course, that's after the hunter has seen the Painter's painting. Of course, aside from that though, Painter doesn't really have any debuffs. Another part of his really good buff is the fact that you don't need to rescue him too early. He can stay on the chair for as long as you like. There's no after half or before half for Painter, so that's pretty good for Painter himself. But overall, Painter has moved up from team comp dependent to solo ranker. Next will be Batter. Batter will be part of niche as well. Batter did receive some nerfs in which he cannot cancel Berserk mode anymore, which it means that it kind of forces Batter to at least waste 1 ball if he wants to reset. Overall, in this case scenario, I'd say it wouldn't be too bad for Batter.
it doesn't make him any worse. He still has all his other buffs as well, aside from the fact that it does make his harassability a little bit less because he can't recycle his items as much, in which I'll probably just say, you know what, it's overall fine. There's not too much to it. There's really not too much to it aside from that. But overall for Batter, after his nerf last season, I say he's still a pretty decent character. You do see him in co-op sometimes from, like, you know, characters that from players that play him as a pocket pick. But overall, I say for Batter, still very niche. The only nerf he's really gotten is just that Berserk nerf, in which you can't cancel anymore. But like, aside from that, still being able to push back the Hunter, still being able to, you know, balloon harass, still a really good long range character, still being able to stun the Hunter, just less recyclability from his items, and honestly, that's about it. Overall for Batter, yes, he does have slow decoding debuff, but when a survivor gets hit, he gains like a 50% movement speed boost for like 8 to 10 seconds. So that's pretty strong. 50% movement speed boost consistently for 8 to 10 seconds. That's basically just saying, oh, if the survivor gets injured, I can run towards the survivor immediately and help them. Right? So like, that's already a really good trait by itself. But I guess overall his solo containing ability is really good. His balloon harassing is also really good. You can't really harass it. You can't really counter it, aside from the excitement, unless you're playing certain type of characters. And I just say overall really good rescue, because you can just push back the Hunter and then immediately rescue if the Hunter decides to chair camp. But yeah, Batter is a really good character overall, aside from the fact that he does have decoding debuff, in which I'll say, look, all harassers have some type of decoding debuff unless it's Prospector. Next, you'll be able to see Toy Merchant. Toy Merchant is still part of niche as well. She's just not used as much in rank. She's a really good solo container. She's a really good supporter, and she's a really good rescuer. She also gives items to her survivors, and she also decodes at normal speed, which is a huge plus. She doesn't really have that much debuffs aside from the fact that she cannot get use an item aside from her catapults. Now for Toy Merchant, yes, she is a little bit map dependent, we will not deny on that, but she is still overall a really good character. The maps that she's not really good at for me is really just Arms Factory and Red Church. She's kind of good everywhere else. If you think about it, Ever Sleeping Town, Moonlit, Hospital, Leo's Memory, Chinatown, she's good on all 5 maps out of 7. So like, I would say she's pretty decent overall. Now, why is not a lot of people using her as much? It's because of the fact that it's currently a chase meta with Opera Singer and Ivy. But even so, in rank you're able to ban those two. So I'd say like your only trash right now would be just Geisha. So what does this mean? This means that if you're in high tier, you shouldn't really worry too much about, you know, playing Toy Merchant against Opera and Ivy. But if you're in low tier and you can only low to mid tier and you can only ban one, I would suggest you ban Opera. Because Ivy shouldn't be too much of an issue, just ban Opera. If you're in 2-story area, Ivy shouldn't be too much of an issue. And like, usually you would be near 2-story areas, and usually you would put a catapult down and jump jump when you see a Hunter near you. So like, for Ivy, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you as an Opera Singer. But overall Opera, why do we say she's great continuing ability? She has catapult, in which she moves faster than Hunter. She has the what's it called again? She has the glider, which allows her to boost faster than the Hunter too. She's able to open chests 50% faster. Yes, she might not be able to use them, but for a Toy Merchant, when you glide, you can throw down an item during glide. So what does that mean? That means that you can assist the survivor mid-kite or throw down an item near the chair. So then, like, you're not only able to safely rescue against 9 Bonbon Gala, you can also bring down an item when a survivor needs it to rebound kite. So like, that's what's really good about Toy Merchant. It's the fact that she's a real good all-rounder and she can do so much more. I would usually say Toy Merchant is a better Lucky Guy in some aspects. Yes, Toy Merchant can't really look for items compared to Lucky Guy, but Toy Merchant is still pretty good. You know, like being able to open chests 50%, 100% faster. It's just pretty decent, and like you get an item at the start of the game. So even if you have a bad item early game, when it's been given to you at the start of the game, you can just go look for the item. Oh, maybe you get an elbow pad, maybe you get, you know, a magician's wand, maybe you get a rugby ball, and just give it to her survivors to rebound kite. So for me, Toy Merchant is still pretty niche. She doesn't really have that much debuffs. The next on the tier list will be Patient. Patient will also be a part of niche here simply because of the fact that he's very similar to Entomologist and to Toy Merchant in a certain extent. Patient has 3 hooks. Patient is very similar to a Mercenary as well, in which you have to hook on towards an obstacle and then pull distance away. Overall for Patient, he's really good in 2-story areas, especially with the fact that he can hook up the stairs and he can hook to various many other things as well, like light pole, just anything that is physical. He can hook it, including pallets as well if he needs to go towards a pallet. So what does this mean? Patient can work like a Cowboy when it comes to hooking the pallets. Patient can work like a Mercenary when it comes to, you know, like it's very similar thing to elbow padding away. Patient can work like a Toy Merchant who can basically fly up in air and then dash towards the chair. But overall for Patient, I would just say having no debuffs aside from the fact that when she decodes with a female character, he does get a decoding debuff. That's not too bad, because if you 2 survivors on 1 last life machine anyways, you're probably at a really good point in the game, or you're at a really bad point in the game when there can be the last cipher, but even so, you don't lose that much decoding progress. Like 2 survivors decoding 1 cipher is better than 1. It's always been like that, and it always will be like that. Overall for Patient, the 3 hooks will able to at least buy you 60 seconds. If you use 1 hook can at least buy you 10 seconds extra kite. Right? 1 hook should be able to buy you at least 10 seconds extra kite because it's after your cooldown time. Now you might say, oh, hey, what about Geisha, what about Naya, what about the fast movement chase type characters, in which I will say you'd usually use your hook right after they use your items, or usually use your hook to cook in towards the nearest pallet or containment areas. So then, like, even if, you know, the Geisha or the Naya dashes towards you, you have pallets to play around. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. Sometimes Patient run Windows Speed Boost, sometimes Patient run Flywheel, sometimes Patients run Tightener. It just depends overall. Is Patient map dependent? Not really. I'd say he works on almost every map. I wouldn't say there's a map that he's not good at. He's good at Arms, he's good at Red Church, he's good at Leo's, Hospital, Ever Sleeping Town, Moonlit, and Chinatown. He's kind of like a really good overall at the end of the day. So yeah, for Patient, aside from that 1 debuff, he also has his mini Lover's trait in which he can dash towards Psychologist. He can rescue Psychologist faster if I'm not wrong as well, or that's probably Psycho's trait, but we'll have to see at the end of the day. But overall, Patient is a really good character to play in solo queue, and he's pretty niche as well. He's better than Magician because he's more reliable too. But yeah, Patient's going to be part of niche. Then you're going to be able to have Psychologist. Psychologist will be a part of niche too. There are there's a lot of reasons for Psycho to be niche. Honestly, there are a lot of reasons for Psychologist to be niche. But for Psychologist herself, we need to understand that Psycho, yes, she's a 3-hit type character. Yes, she has no items to contain, but because of the fact that she's a 3-hit type character, she will at least guarantee a 60-second kite. What does that mean? It just means that you can at least rescue once and sell for the tie, or just fully sell for the tie when you're going against a Psychologist. For a Psychologist, her stress maintains for 20 to 25 seconds, which means that you can't really get an instant down, and even if you do get a terror shock down as a Psychologist, you will have to rescue, because then Psycho can tank 2 hits for rebound kite containment, which is really good. For a Psychologist as well, usually early game when you find a Psychologist, she'll pull distance away, which means that like you have to waste at least 20 seconds to catch up towards the Psycho and actually get a hit on her. Bare minimum, by the way. This is the fastest time you can actually get a hit on Psycho. Not immediately towards game, but when you find Psychologist, that's the bare minimum. And what does the bare minimum mean? That the bare minimum means that if you are 40 seconds in towards the game and you see Psychologist and you get a hit on her 40 seconds in, you cannot hit her twice in a row for the next 20 seconds, or else you're gonna have to deal with double hit Psychologist after you get the rescue. Right, that will be the main issue on hand now when going against Psychologists, and that is what we all have to go through. Now, of course, if you're a chip hunter, you might have it a little bit easier. If you get the first chip onto a cycle a little bit earlier, then the stress will start going down, and you basically say, oh yeah, 10 seconds gone immediately. That's okay as well. That's kind of why, you know, chip hunters can run Psychologists, but this only really applies to Bonbon. For characters like Sculptor and for characters like Mad Eyes, they are too heavily dependent on survivors making mistake, like running in between the pallets and actually getting the chip. For Bonbon, on the other hand, it really depends on how if Bonbon can land the chip or not. Now, there are some survivor factors to it, but it's mainly on Bonbon. So yeah, aside from Bonbon, I don't think there's many chip hunters that can actually do anything to Psycho. But overall for Psycho, she also has a remote healing, which means that when she gives whistle, she can empathize and give a heal towards the survivor. This works really well, especially for rescuers as well who want to rescue for the second time or who just want to sell, but doesn't want to risk too much. Because like when you're at half health after the first rescue and you want to sell and you need to be near the chair, you at least have to be at full health, just so you know, even if the hunter chases after you and you get hit, you can still at least continue for a little longer while your survivor finishes the last 4th and 5th cipher. So like with this remote healing, it only takes 8 seconds, and healing overall for, you know, rescuers like Mercenary takes 20 to 25 seconds, and under rescuer, which takes, you know, maybe 15 to 18 seconds. 8 seconds is a pretty good exchange. And the only debuff Psycho has is after she uses her whistle, she gets healed slower, 10% slower per each use, if I'm not wrong. But like overall, usually if Psycho uses her whistle, that means she's at full health with 3 max hits. You usually wouldn't have to heal a Psychologist. But overall, Psycho is a very, very, very niche character because of this as well. Next will be Novelist. Novelist is somewhere between solo ranky and niche. I would put Novelist in niche, personally speaking. I probably will put him here. Right, I feel like Novelist is a really good solo character, but Novelist is also a really good harasser or like supporter to a certain extent. Novelist gets a book early game. And you know, for Novelist himself, when a hunter vaults over the window or a pallet, he can exchange places with the hunter. What does this mean? This simply means that you can assist your survivors like this as well to help them pull distance. Now, it might not seem like, you know, a major help, but I'd say overall it's not too bad, because if you think about it this way, right, Novelist, what can Novelist do? Novelist can cancel dashes, exactly, Geisha and Nayid. Novelist can cancel items from, you know, PQ or even Bonbon and Gala. Novelist can swap places with the hunter and pallet stomp them, just overall in general. And Novelist can look back. Now, so you might say, okay, some characters, well, you might say, hey, but Moonwalk. I say, hey, you're not wrong, but he gets a book early game anyway, so he does have an item, so that's okay. And it's kind of just like saying, you know, for Novelist, since the hunter doesn't know how much books he has now, I think a lot of hunters overall don't moonwalk as much. Yes, I do moonwalk when I go against a Novelist, but I never know when Novelist will have a full book. Just that uncertainty I feel sometimes that you do get as a hunter when you're like, oh, I need to hit him down immediately, he probably has a lot of books. Now, that is probably what a lot of hunters now are dealing with as well. Overall, like, you know, I would just say really is, he's very similar to Thief and to a lot of other characters in a certain aspect, in which when you pull the pallet down and the hunter needs to vault over the pallet or the window, you're going to be able to get some type of, you know, regeneration effect there anyways. And like, it's only 10 seconds for an item, in which I would say, look, it's not too bad, especially if you can get a stun early game on the hunter and bring great power. Like, you swap places with the hunter, you get a stun on them on a pallet, and then you run and look back. You probably get like 3 to 4 seconds of, you know, free book time for that as well. So like, now you only need 6 seconds, and like with the amount of pallets nearby you, depending on how much there are in the windows, you can probably get quite a bit of items, right? But overall, I would say for Novelist, it really is just, he is a great character when it comes to containability. A lot of people run him on Flywheel, especially with the fact that Flywheel helps him out so much when you need to get that little bit of book remaining. Like when the hunter uses his attack animation, he cannot turn around during that time. So like during that time when you see it, you can be like, oh, I can just Flywheel it, I look at it a little bit more, oh, and maybe I get my book now. That's kind of what Novelist mains do, really. When they play in rank, they run Flywheel a lot. Now, with that in mind, though, he doesn't really have any buffs or nerfs. He decodes Cypher Machines fast when it's below 50% and slow with it when it's after 50%. So in this case, now you can say like, oh, it could be considered a buff, a nerf end game, but it also could be considered as a buff early game when you decode the Cypher Machine up to 50% and go harass, I guess. But overall for Novelist, I feel like he's pretty niche. You could put him in solo ranker too, but I think he's pretty solid as a character. It's just that no one plays him as much because, you know, Cheerleader, Puppeteer, Faro Lady, all these characters that just came out. So yeah, that's what I personally think. Next we have Little Girl. Little Girl will be a part of Team Comp dependent still. I still do think Little Girl is a little bit more Team Comp dependent. Why? Is because if you kite well and Little Girl comes support, yes, it will work out pretty well sometimes, but you still do get countered by fast chase hunters, I feel, and stun type characters, I feel. Because if you think about it this way, right, Little Girl, what does she have? She has 1 page early game, and then she starts slowly stacking up to 3 pages. 1 page isn't enough for containment. 2 pages, well, 2 pages is, but 1 page isn't, unless she starts with 2 pages and I'm just dumb. But if it's 2 pages, it doesn't change the fact that she's still team comp dependent. She can only push the hunter back, in which she can only do so much. If you're against a fast chase type hunter, right after 1 push back, you're just gonna get dashed in or teleported in immediately to you, so like, that's kind of a small issue there. She doesn't have any debuffs, which is great. I won't deny it is great that she doesn't have any debuffs, especially considering that she is a miniature version of Journalist. Not having any vaulting debuffs just shows the... I think it's quite realistic. Children have a lot of energy. But like, aside from that, being able to leech on towards characters, yes, it will work if you kite 60 seconds. It won't work if you didn't kite 60 seconds. And I do think it's really rare when a Little Girl is able to kite 60 seconds with only 2 pages against dash type or stun type characters. I do think it's really rare, right? So like for a Little Girl, she's a really team up dependent, especially early game as well and mid to late game. If she's not first chase, she can definitely support. Right, but like even with a supportability in mind, it depends on the hunter you're up against. Okay, maybe if you're against a Jojo, it'll work. If you're against a Mad Eyes, it'll work. If you're against a Axe Boy, maybe it'll work. Maybe not, because Axe Boy with the fire bombs. But like against Woo, against Feaster with those charge attack hits, maybe not. Against Geisha, maybe not. Against Gamekeeper, maybe not. Against Ripper, maybe not. There's so many counters to Little Girl's support, it's kind of just a huge mech situation at the end of the day, you know? So like, overall what I would say is, sometimes I feel like it's just better to not leech on towards the survivors and just stay back on body block. No, of course you could leech on towards survivor and then get off the body block, that also works too, sorry, I forgot about that. But like, she's really team dependent because it depends on where her team downs, how her team play, how her team kites. Can the rebound kiter actually contain? Or are they just a Dumbo who runs in towards the hunter and not look back? That's kind of what you're up against now if you're playing Little Girl in rank. But aside from that, I'd say she's not a bad character, but just very team up dependent if you want to reach her full potential. But that's that for Little Girl. Okay, next up will be Weeping Cloud. Weeping Cloud is going to be a part of Team COD dependent here as well. I'm just joking. He's going to be part of solo ranking. Weeping Cloud is still a pretty good character to use overall. He's going to get a buff soon, but this isn't with the buff included. With a buff included, it'll be next season tier list. But for this season, Weeping Cloud is still a part of solo ranker. You don't see him much, simply just because of the fact I don't want to explain him as much. But he is still pretty good at the end of the day, you know. So I don't think anyone should really sleep on him. Overall, what I would say for Weeping Cloud is, he's 3 rockets, he's able to pull distance away from the hunter, he's able to move faster than the hunter, and he has this mini boost that he can use to counter hunter's items like Geisha dashes, BQ's mirrors, and even just anything overall like tentacles, bombs, etc, etc. Overall for Weeping Cloud, yes, you can cancel his rocket dashes, but I would say it's a little bit hard for you to do that sometimes. Especially with the fact that it's very unpredictable whether he'll move left or right is what I will say. Weeping Cloud overall being able to pull distance away from the hunter, being able to carry the survivor on him as well. It's really what makes him a pretty good character overall. He's solo ranking because, you know, his supportability doesn't really have that much in mind, but he is really able to, you know, pull a rocket and let it go, and then, you know, make a dash towards the hunter and stun the hunter. You can definitely do that too, especially if you want to balloon harass in between walls. You can do that if you time it correctly. You're going to be able to get the balloon rescue even without the hunter being able to pick up the survivor fully, which is pretty good as well if you think about it. Weeping Cloud has 10% decoding debuff. He has a really good containability, and he's a rescue type character, a support and contain and support type character. He's just not used as much because, you know, compared to Smiley Face, his dashes aren't aren't like you can't do sharp dashes, which I guess is one of the things that makes him bad. His rockets are able to pull distance away, moves faster than a hunter, and if you pull the rocket towards a hunter, you get to stun the hunter, and if you're within the explosion range, you get a little bit of a movement speed boost as well. So that is honestly a pretty good thing on mind. Overall for Weeping Clown, what I would say is he's really good, but he's not bad, he's good. It's just that no one really uses him in rank. He can counter chase hunters too, and of course with his rockets and movement speed boost, it shouldn't be too much of an issue, of course, for you when you play Weeping Clown in rank. Professor is team comp dependent. He's not that reliable, but I guess he is a good solo container. I'm going to say Professor. They're probably really low on solo ranking, but I'm going to have to put him somewhere. He's not really that good. I don't know if he's going to be really worth solo ranking, but he does have characteristics which makes him solo ranking worthy. Professor leaves one skill out in the area, in which it allows the survivors to pick up and use it as a mini shell shock for themselves to use. But aside from that, I guess the only debuff Professor has is a healing debuff right after he scales. He gets rid of his scales for the survivors to use. For Professor, he's able to slow down the hunter's attack animation, so he basically wins when it comes to pallet mind games 24/7, 100% of the time. But it is also pretty easy to bait Professor's shell shock out too, which I will say is a little bit of a minor issue, because, you know, overall it's kind of just like, I don't know. I really don't know. It's just along the lines of, hey, is Professor good? Because we don't really see him much, but he does have the kish to be good, but it's just kind of depending on how the hunter plays it. Like, the hunter is going to be able to bait out the shell shock from time to time, like especially fast hit hunters as well. Even if you slow it down, it's like blah. It's just a huge blah with things in mind. But honestly, yeah, Professor is really meh in that situation. I don't know, he could be part of solo rank. He does have any debuffs, he does have good solo containment. If you do miss your shell shock first, right after you get the rescue, you should have it back, because I'm quite sure if you miss it, it's a 40-second cooldown, but if you land it, it's a 70-second cooldown. But by the time you get rescue, you should be able to use it for rebound kite containment. But can you rebound kite after that is a really good question, so I'm not too sure on that side note too. But overall, what I would say is he could be a part of team comp dependent, or even just unreliable overall for Professor, but I'm going to put him in solo ranking because he still does have the kit to be solo ranking worthy. Next will be Antiquarian. Antiquarian, of course, will be a part of Antiquarian and Friends. She's still a very strong character to use. Antiquarian being able to disarm a hunter is kind of strong. She's also able to balloon harass, which is very strong. She's also going to be able to mid-kite harass, which is really strong. She's also going to be able to rebound kite harass, which is also really strong. Overall, what I would say for Antiquarian really is just the fact that she has a lot of things in her kit, which makes her strong. She has spinning, which allows her to contain against, you know, characters like Anna Waxardis, which needs to fast catch up. A 5% movement speed boost is always nice to have. Her stabs and sweeps and her stab, swing, and sweep is also really good against single hit hunters, or even chip hunters in general. If you want to get rid of their items, if you want to get rid of their ability to attack, and just many more. And then you also have flip as well, which is really good, especially against, you know, short obstacle areas. If you want to flip across a certain thing, you can definitely do that too. So like, overall, what I would say is Antiquarian has a lot of things in mind. She can rescue, she can harass, she can kite, she can balloon harass, she can mid-kite harass, she can basically do so much things. And of course, if you land all 3 of your bamboo sticks in a row, it's a 17 to 18 second disarm rate, which means 17 to 18 seconds you can't use your basic hit. And then like per each bamboo stick she uses, it goes in a 25-second cooldown, and then she gets to use another 2 to 3 more. So if you think about it, you're disarmed for at least 30 seconds bare minimum if an Antiquarian uses her flutes bog, basically, right? And then like, also with the fact you can get rid of tentacles, chair camp bombs, chair camp statues, chair camp, it just makes chair camp unreliable anymore for hunters when Antiquarian's rescue as well, and with Antiquarian rescues too. She doesn't necessarily have to rescue. She can disarm the hunter and then immediately rescue because it's a 1 second disarm, which means if you brought the 40% rescue speed, you only take 0.6 seconds to rescue. So like even with anyone, you can do a no damage rescue as Antiquarian. Antiquarian has way too much in her kitting, which allows her to excel at so many things. But I guess really it's just she's really good for solo ranking. She's like a really good all-rounder and really meta too. But yeah, that's that for Antiquarian and friends. Next will be Composer. Composer is a little bit unreliable as a character, especially as a decoder too. Yes, you could say next season maybe he might be a little bit better, but for now he's kind of unreliable, especially with containment and decoding wise. If you miss one calibration, it's bad. If you don't realize that the hunter was actually near you, it's also really bad. Yes, the hunter does get a red highlight when the hunter is near the composer, but like aside from that, nah. Overall for Composer, because of the fact that he has to really focus on his tuning ability on the cipher machine, he can't really lose focus. If he lose focus, it's a few, percentages lost on the cipher machine decoding progress. You could say Composer is a little bit similar to Lawyer, but Lawyer is more or less better because of the fact that like he just needs decoding instead of focusing, and he's higher containability compared to Composer. Overall for Composer this season, yes, you do see him in tourney, but it's only just to go against Ivy. But aside from that, for Composer right now, really highly unreliable character. He does decode fast, yes, but in exchange for that, you need to put a lot of focus into decoding, into those calibrations to get that 20% max. And it's also the fact that even with his tuning on mine, it's so easily countered by dash type characters. It's kind of just a huge mech situation. It's really just a huge mech situation. Yes, it's 40-second cooldown. Yes, you can stack it with a double speed boost, but like with current day meta being full chase and all, I don't think it's really that suitable for Composer. If Composer's decodability was a little bit better, then I would say yes, tie guarantee. But for now, no, not really. Composer really isn't on that side note too. So, overall we'll just have to see how it goes. But for current season Composer, it's more or less just, hey, we have to either focus on decoding or containability, but even if you do contain, if it's a fast chase hunter, you might not be able to survive for that long anyways. So that's kind of the conundrum for Composer. Let's see, Journalist. I'm gonna put Journalist a part of tie guarantee. There's quite a good few reasons for it. I think after her buff, she's being made quite better now, especially kiting opera singer in pro play. We have seen Journalist kiting opera. I think I put her in solo ranker last time, but I wasn't too sure of that. But this time I'd say she's probably more tie guarantee type. Why? It's because of the fact that, once she uses all her little Orpheus, she can at least guarantee a tie. She's not that much of a good kiter, is what I would like to say. But like right off, and like, you use your items quite fast as well. It's 6 seconds per little Orpheus. So like for the newspaper boy, like you can only buy around 30 seconds time, or even 36-second time if you use all 4. But like aside from that, what I will probably say is like for Journalist, if she's the only rescuer in the team, that's probably pretty bad. But if she gets first chase, you still should be able to guarantee that tie. She will at least contain 50-60 seconds for you, and like if it's a good Journalist, maybe even longer. If Journalist isn't first chase and she is rescued, then I'd say for a Journalist rescuing, you can guarantee a rescue against chip hunters. You can basically guarantee rescue against anyone in general. If you put a little Orpheus in, yes, a little Orpheus might get bombed out or even get chipped out, but then like that just means that the hunter doesn't really have that much items anymore left for you. So what does that mean? That means that you yourself can now rescue against whoever was on chair, which is why I say Journalist is a really good tie guarantee type of survivor. If you need that one rescue, you definitely can't go in for it without getting doubled down. Overall, aside from that though, Journalist has a 10% decoding debuff early game. When little Orpheus gets hit, it stacks up by 3% each time, up to a maximum of 9%. So in total, she has 19% decoding debuff if she gets first chase and then the hunter changes targets. But aside from that, I'd say she's a pretty decent character. Honestly, a pretty decent character as well. Even if she isn't first chase, her Cipher Machine decoding debuff isn't too bad. So like you should be at least able to finish off 3 Cipher Machines, well 2 Cipher and another 80% Cipher Machine if another survivor was being chased. But yeah, that's that for Journalist. Okay, next will be Aeroplanist. Aeroplanist will be a part of Antiquarian and Friends as well. Even after Aeroplanist's recent nerf, it still doesn't change anything about Aeroplanist. What was Aeroplanist's nerf? His dash got reduced. His dash distance got reduced, but that was about it. Yes, in this case, our hunters will be able to catch up towards Aeroplanist a little bit better now, but it doesn't change any of the difference of saying that, you know, he's still a good character to use. His jetpack is still only like 10 seconds long, and it's the fact that he's able to pull distance. He's able to pull distance and make himself run straight towards, you know, areas like he's like a merc and a patient, but without any necessary requirements to use their items, which is what makes him really good as well. And Aeroplanist is able to get on air, so it's like a mix of patient and merc. And you know, when he's on here, he's able to dash forward faster as well. When you're on air too for Aeroplanist, you can use your jetpacks twice in a row. If you're fast enough, you can use it twice in a row without cheerleader support as well, so you're able to put even more distance. For Aeroplanist, he's a guaranteed type of rescuer too, because he can just jetpack his way in towards the rescue without worry. Very similar to Mercenary. For Aeroplanist, he doesn't have any decoding debuff. He has a decoding buff. His decoding buff is a 2% buff. Whatever cipher machine he touches, anyone who decodes that cipher machine receives a 2% buff. It just means that it finishes 2% faster. Right, so like for Aeroplanist, that is still a pretty good positive plus. 2% is 2% at the end of the day, right? If max 3% is really good for all survivors, then 2% is really good for one cipher too. Okay, so we can't really complain about that. We can't really argue about that. For Aeroplanist himself, I still do see him in rank, just not as much, because people want to play Perfumer more, people want to play Female Dancer more, people want to play other type of characters more, and AU really isn't that much of a meta slave. I'm quite sure that's that for Asia as well. You don't see that much Aeroplanist in Asia, but he is still going to appear quite a lot in tourneys. At the end of the day, he is still really just that good. It's just that no one plays him as much. But overall, what I would say is for Aeroplanist, a really good meta character, still a really good meta character, would still put him on top. Really nice decoding speed. Oh, he is decoding speed boost 2%. He has rescue potential. He has really good body blocking potential too, because when a survivor is nearby, he pulls down pallets faster, but if a survivor is not nearby, he pulls down pallets slower. But like, I'd say that's just an even exchange in that sense, so I would call that like a buff and a nerf, but it just cancels itself out completely. So yeah, that's that for Aeroplanist. Next will be Cheerleader. Cheerleader is also a part of Antiquarian. Oh, wrong one. Lol. Cheerleader is still a part of Antiquarian and Friends. I know some people believe that Cheerleader is probably niche and not meta, but hear me out. Cheerleader works with too many characters. Cheerleader also has her own continuability effects, and Cheerleader is just really good in general. Why am I saying this? Think about it this way, right? What characters get supported by Cheerleader? Who do you have in this tier list who gets supported by Cheerleader? You have Composer, you have Little Girl, you have Wildling, you have Gardener, you have Postman, you have Journalist, you have TME, you have Painter, Perfumer, Gravekeeper, Forward, Weeping Clown, Magician, Professor, Prisoner, Prospector, Cowboy, Toy Merchant, Batter, Acrobat, Entomologist, Psychologist, First Officer, Patient, Aeroplanist, Seer, Antiquarian, Mercenary, Fire Investigator, and that's like 85% of the survivor pool. Cheerleader is able to pair up with 85% of all survivors. That is pretty strong. Cheerleader also allows you to use your Cheerleader, with that in mind, being able to support 85% of survivors by refreshing their item cooldown. It does help out a lot, especially with the fact that if the hunter is about to hit you and you need to use your items again because you did mess up, that is pretty good. That is, honestly speaking, pretty good. Yes, Cheerleader can only support a certain survivor twice at max, but 2 times is more than enough, because survivors don't have more than 3 items. Unless they recharge, but they don't have more than 3 items if it's like expensable, if it's consumable. So like, for Cheerleader, her supportability is great. Okay, we'll take that in mind. What else does Cheerleader have? She has encouragement, in which when she cheers for a survivor, she and the survivor gets 5% movement speed boost. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. You know, 5% is 5%. 5% is fast. You're able to dodge chips easier now. So that counters chip hunters. And what does 5% also do? When you consume 5 stacks of her encouragement, you gain movement speed boost for 1.5 seconds and a debuff for 0.75 seconds. What does this mean? What this means is you can use a movement speed boost for 1.5 seconds to get towards a pallet, and then when you drop down the pallet, that's your movement speed boost, movement debuff cancelled. Similarly, it works well with windows. Similarly, it works well with vaulting. Similarly, it works well with a lot of other stuff too, like using your items or rescuing. So like for Cheerleader overall, it's really, really, really good. Encouragement is also really good. And not all also with that in mind, 28 stacks, 36 stacks, and 42 stacks. You get to consume all those stacks, and then so you consume all those stacks one by one, just to get just to retrieve what was damaged. Right, well, what does this mean? If you're a half health and you're 28 stacks, you get hit by the hunter, you consume all 28 stacks, you get up. That's a free borrow time for you. That is pretty decent. That is honestly really good. And especially with the fact that if Cheerleader is body blocking, or if Cheerleader isn't body blocking but the survivor has the items, this is very easy to achieve. Very, very easy to achieve. I say you can achieve this in 15 seconds. You can definitely achieve this in like 15 seconds. Right, and if another survivor body blocking or harassing for you, it's even easier for you to do, especially with Last Life for Machine there on mine as well. It's even easier for you to do. So what does Cheerleader have? Really, really, really good support ability. One of the best supports in the game right now. And what else does she have? She is also a really good container. She's also a really good container. What can she do? Cheerleader can pump on once away from the hunter. If the hunter is about to hit you or dash towards you, can pump on away and then pull a pallet down if you're near a pallet or a window, vault the window. Some cheerleaders might bring window or pallet speed boost, so I would suggest not to vault it, because if you have movement debuff, then it's not recommended. I would suggest you just use all your pom-poms and get away. Right, but then like if you're near a pallet, you can just put the pallet down and then consume all movement debuff before vaulting a window or a pallet, or use a pom-pom again to get to her somewhere else. Realistically speaking, right? Realistically speaking, that's probably what should happen. So then, like, with all those in mind, Cheerleader only has a 10% decoding debuff in exchange for all that support, all that contain, all that harass. So like I would say for Cheerleader, definitely a part of Antiquarian and Friends. Now next on the tier list will be Puppeteer. Puppeteer will be a part of Antiquarian and Friends. I think I put him in niche last season, but I'm gonna put him higher this season. Why? It's because I realized how good of a character he is. If Psycho takes 3 hits and can rebound kite, Puppeteer can also do the same thing. Puppeteer can also do the same thing. Puppeteer can tank 4 hits, and Puppeteer can rescue 3 times. Right, Puppeteer can rescue 3 times. When Puppeteer uses his items, there's no cooldown, and I think that's a really, really, really good thing. That's one thing a lot of people sleep on, I feel. That's a lot of things people sleep on, I feel. For Puppeteer himself, being able to buy 8 seconds like a Seer's Owl and gain movement 8% to 8% movement speed boost during the Lewis form, and having a mini flywheel effect per each puppet use, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I do think that is absolutely brilliant. The little flywheel effect works really well when you want to counter a chip, right? So like if a Bob-on or a Sculptor puts down their chips, you can use that little flywheel effect to cancel it. Isn't that great? If you think about it right, isn't that great? And even if 100 hits you, it'll only be considered as a 0.5 hit instead of a 0.75 hit. It'll be only considered as a hit instead of a hit on a chip because you use that mini flywheel. And I do think a lot of people sleep on that. I know for a lot of people, Bob-on counters Puppeteer, but if you use that flywheel on time, and okay, yes, maybe your Little Lewis is going to go into cooldown, is going to expire soon, you can just spam it again because there's no cooldown. Isn't that brilliant? Isn't that brilliant? So like for Puppeteer, he doesn't have that much counters now if you think about it this way. Maybe it expires from Wax Artist, but like even if it's Wax Artist, you need to wait 8 seconds before you can actually pull any shenanigans on towards that Puppeteer. Right, so like, isn't that great? Isn't that honestly great for Puppeteer? He doesn't really have that much counters. Like even for Anne, once Anne gets the cat on Puppeteer, Puppeteer can look at the scenario, right? If Anne decides to burst the cat, Puppeteer will just immediately utilize his little puppet. Because Anne can cancel the cat and then dash towards him, right? So Anne can just, so like for Puppeteer, he can just look at the scenario. If the cat is about to burst, use his little Lewis, get his movement speed boost, and run towards the next nearest pallet or window area. And if Anne hits, you're still just one chip down. If Anne hits, you're still just one chip down. If Anne decides to jump towards you, you can be like, okay, I want to type this correctly. If Anne jumps towards me, then what I will do is I will activate my little Lewis and force myself to get a stun. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? What a great way to counter Anne as Puppeteer, right? And like, what about Nayat? It also works the same with Nayat. Oh, if there is a if I'm about to get almost about to get 100% 100% what? If I'm about to get 100% moisture, I can change the little Lewis to take the moisture hit, or I can change the little Lewis and use my mini flywheel to counter the moisture burst. So you're still just, so like, not only do you still have your little Lewis and 8% movement and speed boost, you still have 8 seconds to play around this Nayat, and 8 seconds to rotate around outside of this area. So isn't that great for Puppeteer if you think about it this alright? He's so good, so good. His rescue is same thing, but instead of 8 seconds, it's 4 seconds. But if you do it well, you can rescue 2 to 3 times. Bare minimum 2 times, but at least a max 3 times. Right, so like for little Lewis, absolutely brilliant character, absolutely brilliant character. And even if you do get terror shocked on chair, you can still rescue. So isn't that better than first officer then if that's the case? Isn't that still better than first officer then if that's the case? Because you can terror shock rescue as Matthias, as Puppeteer. So Puppeteer will be a part of Antiquarians and Friends for me. He doesn't have any debuffs as well, by the way, with decoding. It's just healing debuff he has, by the way, I forgot to add. And like, even with his healing debuff, it can be countered if he brings full Doctor persona. So like, that's absolutely fine. You can just counter it with full Doctor persona. And like with Puppeteer, probably bringing full Doctor persona isn't a bad choice as well. So that's that. Who's next? Next will be Fire Investigator. Fire Investigator will be unreliable this season. He is pretty unreliable, to be honest with you, because like, if you think about it this way, right? If Fire Investigator puts his puffs down, puts his airbags down, only he can actually get rid of the item. So then that means if a survivor is nearby and they suddenly just put that down and the survivor can't pass through anymore, the hunter's right behind you, that's pretty bad. But I also do think it's because of the fact that the deployability of the airbags is pretty slow. Sometimes the hunter is able to hit you before the airbag actually comes alive. Right, so there's also that part too. And another part is, I feel like it's sometimes unreliable too, because sometimes you can mess up your placement. If you mess up your placement, the hunter can immediately catch up towards you, and that's probably not something that you want to do. That is probably not something that you want to do. So like, with that in mind, for Fire Investigator, he has a lot of downsides to himself right now as well. Fire Investigator also has a 10% decoding debuff, in which he'll gain up to a maximum of 15% when he is containing a hunter. That is brilliant, but that is only when he's harassing that will work, right? So like, if you think about it this way, he has 10% decoding debuff. Fire Investigator has 2 airbags, and he can swap out items right after using all 2 airbags, which is a little bit unfortunate. And I do think it's also with the fact that his airbags are a little bit short on range. If it's a little bit longer, like the buffs, he'll probably be a little bit higher, but for now, it's really low. For me, it is quite short, in which I'll say, man, I don't really like it. I don't really like it, is what I would like to say. Not really that good of a, character for me. He's not that reliable too. Yes, you've seen S-Badge Fire Investigator, but like, I don't see them doing much. I really don't see them doing much that often too. Like, he's also really unreliable because, like, you need to run towards his airbags to utilize the items, which I would say, okay, great, but the movement speed boost is just a small push. It's like a mini Mercenary elbow pop with half its effect, but like, very situational too. Very, very situational too. It just gets fully countered by Dash Hunter, so like, I'd say you're not at the best case scenario right now. You're really not at the best case scenario right now. Also, for Fire Investigator, is there any good points about him? No, I don't really think so. He can block certain areas and force the hunter to charge that case. He can also force the hunter to drop down the survivor when a balloon, when his airbag is in the way. That's brilliant and all, but it's very situational. It is still very situational. It depends on the situation. It's not like you can always guarantee that happen, but it is way too situational in my opinion. So like, he's not really that reliable at all. Like, he's not a bad character. He's a fun character to play, but he isn't that reliable. Now, I have said on stream that he's good, but like, I guess we have to face the reality sometimes. No, not really. He's not really that good, unfortunately. Not really. He's not really that good, unfortunately. So like, for Fight Investigator, with all the cons in mind, does he have pros? Yes, blocking areas, but aside from that, no, not really. He just gets countered immediately by Dash Hunter. So like, for myself, what I would say is he's not really that high. Yes, he's getting a buff, but we'll have to see how it goes. Okay, last but not least, Faro Lady. Faro Lady will be a part of solo ranking for this season. I want to put her up in niche, but I guess since NetEase thinks that she's pretty bad, they're gonna buff her next season apparently. So we have to see what Faro Lady buff is gonna be at the end of next season for season 33. Overall, what is Faro Lady? Faro Lady is the newest survivor that has been introduced. What does she do? She can steal cipher machines from on the map to boost her own cipher machine by 15, 20, 25% based on the distance. The closer it is, the better. Right, but for Faro Lady, what does she have? She has 2 kings, in which these kings make a frosty road, in which you can bait the hunter to think that you're running towards that direction. Faro Lady's inner trait is that she has cloak, in which she goes invisible, but she does have this frosty trail that follows her too, which is why the king only works well when you are in invisible mode with the, you know, with the trails, with the frosty trails. These frosty trails last for 3 seconds, in which if you bring feather, it will still be 3 seconds, so there won't be any changes to that. Now, what is good about Faro Lady? What's good about Faro Lady is the fact that she gains a 10% boost immediately if the cipher machine is below 10%, which means that it only really takes her 62 seconds to finish off a cipher machine early game. What also does it mean? It means that for Faro Lady, if she can steal cipher machines, then it means that if a hunter decides to camp the last cipher, it will not work against Faro Lady, because Faro Lady will be able to prime another cipher machine on the other side of the map pretty fast as well, especially with accelerated decoding endgame. So who is this good for? This is good for Bonbon, this is good against Gala, this is good against Mad Eyes, this is good against a lot of the characters who basically want to share camp, like Naya, like Wax Artist, like Hermish, like Opera, like, you know, just so many characters in general, right? So then, like, why is she good? Let's just talk about that first. She's good because of the fact that she has good containability. When she goes into invisibility form, her invisibility form lasts for 18 seconds. And of course, if you use the cane and pull distance away from the hunter, you will be notified. The hunter will be notified that you left the area, but your progression will be reduced. Right, which means you gain more than 16/18 seconds of invisibility, so that's great. What else does it mean? It means that hunter can't camp the cipher machine. That's a brilliant part about it. You cannot camp the cipher machine anymore if there is a Faro Lady on the field. And it's also with the fact that they're planning to buff her next season too. So we'll have to see how that goes. For Faro Lady overall, the only bad thing about her is her rescue, but her rescue is 60% slower. But if you bring like the rescue persona, if you really do want to rescue, it's still okay. But like, a lot of people complain about her rescue ability, in which I will say, you're a rescuer, you're not, you know, you're a decoder. You're not supposed to rescue anyway. They're trying not to make an Explorer 2.0, Lawyer 2.0, or Mechanic 2.0. They're just trying not to do that anymore, right? Which is why, like, for Faro Lady, they decided to give her that debuff. Now, the good thing about Faro Lady is the fact that she can pick up items right after using both of her kings. So what does that mean? That means that if you don't want to use your kings, you can just pop them off immediately and then go search for a chest. But I don't really recommend that, but you could do that if you want to. For Faro Lady as well, what is really scary is once your cloak is 40-second cooldown, right? But like, if you think about it, a lot of characters, a lot of Faro Ladies can contain until cloak is almost ready, like 10-second cooldown on code or 20-second cooldown. But I think what a lot of people didn't realize is the fact that if you have Titanner, your cloak cooldown goes down as well. Even if you get hit during Tide time, your cloak still gets that 20-second cooldown duration that goes down. Like, it keeps going. It doesn't stop like Enchantress, like Painter, like Doctor, like Perfumer. It keeps going down. The cooldown duration still keeps going down, right? So I think that's a really good plus on Faro Lady. The only bad thing about Faro Lady is really just her rescue. But aside from that, she is really good. She's also getting a buff as well, right? So what does Faro Lady have? She is good decoding. She's good contain. Her contain's 50-50. Some people say. I say it's good enough. It's a bit above average, not too above average, but a bit above average. But aside from that, she is a very good character. And of course, that is going to be the end of season 32 Survivor tier list. We'll move on towards another tier list pretty soon as well. Sorry, you probably heard my voice change from Entomologist onwards because I caught an illness. But aside from that, if you have any different opinions, why not leave a comment down? I'll read it and maybe I'll change my opinion for season 33 tier list. But this is going to be end of it here for today. If you liked the video, please like it, and if you're new around here, why not subscribe? Because I do these videos daily, not daily lol, but like on occasions as well. But that's gonna be enough Survivor tier list for everyone. Bye bye for now.